Chapter 11. New Recruits. In the aftermath of Darkhold's fall, the once formidable stronghold began a new chapter under Rael's leadership. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, the focus shifted from conquest to consolidation. Rael, ever the visionary leader, saw immense potential in the very heart of what used to be an enemy bastion. Darkhold was not just a military victory, it was a treasure trove of untapped human resources. With the stronghold secured, Rael and Lysandra, his trusted advisor in matters of strategy and personnel, initiated a comprehensive assessment of the populace. They sought to uncover individuals whose skills had been suppressed or overlooked under the previous regime. Darkhold, known for its enduring defenses and resilient infrastructure, had long been a center for skilled craftsmen and ingenious engineers, professions that thrived in a city frequently under siege. One crisp morning, with the sun casting a golden glow over the repaired battlements of Darkhold, Rael convened a meeting in the main hall, now serving as a temporary command center. He addressed the gathered crowd, a mixture of former residents and his own loyal followers, with a clear and resonant voice. "Today, we begin anew," Rael announced, his tone imbued with a firm sense of purpose. "Darkhold will no longer be a symbol of division and strife. Instead, it will stand as a beacon of unity and potential. I ask those among you with skills in craftsmanship, engineering, and medicine to step forward. Together, we will build a stronger, more resilient force." The response was immediate and enthusiastic. From the throng emerged blacksmiths whose anvils had once forged the chains of their own oppression, engineers who had maintained the integrity of Darkhold's walls against countless sieges, and medics who had tended to the wounded in the shadows of conflict. One by one, they were interviewed by Lysandra, who meticulously documented their skills and experiences. Among them was Eldrick, a blacksmith of considerable repute, whose innovative designs for armor plating had once been appropriated by the former lords of Darkhold for their elite guards. Then there was Mira, a young but astute engineer, who had devised a network of underground aqueducts that kept Darkhold's wells filled even during the harshest sieges. As Rael spoke with them, his vision for a revitalized army began to take shape. He envisioned squads equipped with the finest armor, siege engines of unparalleled efficiency, and a medical corps capable of reducing battlefield casualties significantly. "I see before me the backbone of what will be our greatest strength," Rael told them, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his new recruits. "Your skills are the foundation upon which we will build a force not just of might, but of innovation and resilience." Over the following weeks, Darkhold transformed under Rael's directive. Workshops were established along the eastern barracks where Eldrick and his fellow blacksmiths pounded new life into old metal, crafting armor and weapons that bore the insignia of Rael's coalition. Mira led a team of engineers in enhancing the structural defenses of Darkhold, fortifying its walls against potential retaliations, and designing new catapults and trebuchets that would one day reinforce their siege capabilities. The medics, under the guidance of an experienced healer named Tamar, set up a field hospital within the fortress. Here, the medics not only treated the sick and wounded but also trained in the preparation of herbal remedies and surgical procedures that were innovative for their time. But Rael knew that integrating such a diverse group into his existing forces would require more than shared tasks and common goals. He needed to foster a sense of unity and camaraderie among them. To this end, he organized weekly gatherings where soldiers and recruits could mingle and share their stories and skills. These events often featured demonstrations, from the blacksmiths showcasing their craft to the medics conducting first aid drills, each activity designed to engender respect and appreciation across cultural and professional divides. Moreover, Rael instituted a mentorship program, pairing seasoned soldiers with new recruits, ensuring that each had a personal stake in the other's success. This initiative not only accelerated the learning curve for the newcomers but also strengthened the bonds among his troops, creating a cohesive and dedicated army. As months turned to seasons, the impact of Rael's efforts became evident. Darkhold stood not only as a fortified military outpost but as a thriving center of innovation and unity. The recruits from Darkhold, once subjects of a tyrannical regime, now stood as proud defenders of a new cause, their loyalty and commitment forged in the fires of transformation and renewed purpose. As the sun rose over Darkhold, the fortress buzzed with newfound energy. Rael had transformed it from a symbol of oppression to a beacon of unity and potential. Now came the critical task of integrating the newly recruited craftsmen, engineers, and medics into his forces. This required not just training but also forging a deep sense of belonging and purpose. The training grounds of Darkhold, previously reserved for the elite guards, were now bustling with activity. Rael's vision was clear. He wanted a seamless blend of martial prowess and specialized skills that would make his army formidable and innovative. The first step in this transformation was the comprehensive training program he had devised with his advisors. Rael stood on a raised platform overlooking the training grounds, addressing the assembled recruits and seasoned soldiers. His voice was calm but carried a commanding authority. "Today, we begin the next phase of our journey. You are not just soldiers, but the builders of our future. Each of you brings unique skills that will make us stronger. Together, we will forge an unbreakable bond. Eldrick, the master blacksmith, had already set up a large forge on the eastern side of the grounds. The rhythmic clanging of hammers on anvils echoed across the courtyard as he and his team worked tirelessly, crafting new weapons and armor. His apprentices, eager to prove themselves, followed his precise instructions, their faces glistening with sweat and determination. "Strong steel for a stronger army," Eldrick would often say, his voice booming over the din. His innovative designs included lighter, more durable armor and weapons balanced for both human and orc warriors. Rael made regular visits to the forge, discussing new ideas with Eldrick and ensuring the craftsmen felt valued and integral to their mission. On the western side of the training grounds, Mira led the engineers in constructing advanced siege equipment. Under her direction, they built reinforced trebuchets, battering rams with enhanced striking power, and intricate defensive mechanisms. Her engineering prowess was matched by her ability to inspire and lead, and her team respected her deeply. Mira stood before a newly constructed trebuchet, her voice confident and clear. "This is not just a weapon. It is a testament to our ingenuity and our determination to protect what we build. Let every stone it hurls remind our enemies of our resolve." Rael had also allocated a significant area for the medics and their field hospital. Tamar, the lead healer, organized daily drills where medics practiced advanced first aid, surgery, and the preparation of herbal remedies. The medics worked tirelessly, their dedication to preserving life a cornerstone of Rael's philosophy. In one training session, Tamar addressed her medics with a serene yet resolute voice. "In battle, we are the line between life and death. Our skills must be as sharp as any sword, our resolve as strong as any shield. Remember, every life we save strengthens our cause." Rael knew that integrating such a diverse group required more than just physical training. It was about fostering unity and mutual respect. To this end, he organized mixed unit training sessions where warriors, craftsmen, engineers, and medics worked together on simulated missions. These exercises were designed to build trust and understanding among the recruits. One such exercise involved a simulated siege where all units had to collaborate to defend Darkhold against an imagined enemy. Eldrick's blacksmiths provided weapons and armor, Myra's engineers operated the siege equipment, and Damar's medics tended to the wounded, all while the soldiers held the line. The exercise began at dawn, with Rael and his advisors overseeing the operations. The soldiers, armed with freshly forged weapons, took their positions along the walls. The engineers, led by Mira, calibrated the trebuchets and prepared the defenses. The medics, under Tamar's guidance, set up triage stations and readied their supplies. As the enemy forces, played by a contingent of Rael's own troops, advanced, the defenders sprang into action. The clash of metal and the roar of trebuchets filled the air. Arrows flew, and the walls shook under the imagined onslaught, but the defenders held firm. Each unit performed its role flawlessly, demonstrating the effectiveness of their training and the strength of their unity. Rael watched with pride as his vision came to life. The defenders, despite their diverse backgrounds, fought as one cohesive unit. The blacksmiths, engineers, medics, and soldiers worked together seamlessly, their combined efforts creating a formidable defense. At the end of the exercise, Rael gathered everyone together. The recruits, though tired and covered in sweat and grime, stood tall, their faces shining with a sense of accomplishment. "You have shown today what we can achieve when we stand united," Rael said, his voice filled with pride. "Each of you is vital to our success. Together, we will forge a future where all our skills and strengths are celebrated and utilized. This is the strength of our army, and this is the strength that will lead us to victory." The cheers that followed echoed across Darkhold, a powerful affirmation of their shared purpose and unity. The exercise had not only tested their skills but also solidified their bonds, creating a foundation of trust and respect that would carry them through the battles to come. In the following weeks, the integration efforts continued. Mixed unit drills became a regular part of their training regimen, and the bonds among the recruits deepened. Eldrick's blacksmiths collaborated with Myra's engineers to design even more advanced weaponry and defenses. Tamar's medics shared their knowledge with the soldiers, teaching them basic first aid and survival skills. Rael also implemented cultural exchange programs, where recruits from different backgrounds shared their traditions and stories. These programs fostered a deeper understanding and appreciation of their diverse heritage, further strengthening their unity. As the integration process progressed, Rael's army grew not only in strength but also in resilience. They became a living testament to the power of unity and collaboration, a diverse coalition bound by a common goal and shared values. Darkhold itself underwent a transformation. The once oppressive fortress became a thriving center of innovation and cooperation. Workshops and training grounds buzzed with activity, and the air was filled with the sounds of progress and growth. The stronghold's walls, once symbols of division, now stood as guardians of a united and formidable force. Rael's vision for a diverse and inclusive army had become a reality. The recruits from Darkhold, along with his original forces, stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their unity and strength were a beacon of hope and inspiration, a testament to what they could achieve together. Chapter 12. Expanding Influence. The sun rose over Darkhold, casting its golden light over the stronghold that had become a beacon of unity and strength. Rael stood on the battlements, gazing out over the bustling activity below. The fortress was alive with the sound of training drills, the clanging of blacksmiths at their forges, and the hum of engineers working on new siege equipment. But today, his thoughts were turned outward, beyond the walls of Darkhold. It was time to expand his influence and forge new alliances. Rael convened a council of his most trusted advisors in the Grand Hall. Lysandra, Alistair, Serafina, and Grushak sat around a large wooden table, their faces reflecting a mix of anticipation and determination. Maps and documents were spread out before them, detailing the various factions and territories that Rael hoped to bring into his growing coalition. "We have achieved much here at Darkhold," Rael began, his voice steady and authoritative. "But our vision of a united and peaceful realm requires that we reach beyond these walls. We must seek out allies, forge new bonds, and strengthen our influence across the land." Lysandra nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the maps. "There are several key factions that could be valuable allies," she said, pointing to various locations on the map. "The free cities to the north, the dwarven clans in the mountains, and the coastal settlements to the west. Each has unique strengths that could bolster our forces." Alistair leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "The free cities have a strong economy and skilled archers. The dwarven clans are renowned for their craftsmanship and engineering. And the coastal settlements have a powerful navy. Securing alliances with these factions would significantly enhance our capabilities." Serafina added, "We should also consider reaching out to the neutral territories. They have remained independent for years, but they might be willing to join us if we can offer them protection and prosperity." Rael listened carefully, his mind already formulating a plan. "We will send emissaries to each of these factions," he decided. "We will offer them a vision of unity and mutual benefit, emphasizing our commitment to justice and peace. We must choose our emissaries carefully, ensuring they have the diplomatic skills and knowledge needed to succeed." With the decision made, Rael and his advisors set about selecting the emissaries. Each emissary was chosen for their unique strengths and connections to the targeted factions. Among them were skilled diplomats, seasoned warriors, and knowledgeable scholars, each carrying messages of goodwill and unity. Rael addressed the chosen emissaries in the courtyard of Darkhold, their faces reflecting a mix of pride and determination. "You are the messengers of our vision," Rael told them, his voice resonating with authority. "You carry not just words, but the hopes and dreams of our people. Go forth with courage and conviction, and show the world what we stand for." The emissaries departed, each heading towards their respective destinations. As they embarked on their journeys, Rael turned his attention to bolstering the defenses and ensuring the continued integration of the new recruits. The first emissary, a seasoned diplomat named Eamon, traveled north to the free cities. These cities, known for their economic prowess and skilled archers, had maintained a delicate balance of power for years. Eamon carried with him gifts of fine armor and weapons crafted by Eldrick, symbols of the strength and unity Rael's coalition offered. Upon reaching the free cities, Eamon was met with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The city leaders, a council of wealthy merchants and skilled warriors, listened as Eamon presented Rael's vision of unity and mutual benefit. "We offer not just protection, but a partnership," Eamon explained, his voice steady and persuasive. "Together, we can create a future where our combined strengths ensure peace and prosperity for all." The council deliberated for several days, weighing the risks and benefits of aligning with Rael's forces. Ultimately, the promise of mutual benefit and the demonstrated strength of Darkhold swayed their decision. The free cities agreed to an alliance, pledging their economic support and skilled archers to Rael's cause. Meanwhile, a warrior named Kale journeyed to the mountains to seek an alliance with the dwarven clans. Kale, a formidable fighter with a deep respect for the dwarven craftsmanship, carried gifts of precious metals and rare gems, tokens of goodwill and respect. The journey to the mountain strongholds was arduous, the paths steep and treacherous. But Kale's determination never wavered. Upon reaching the dwarven halls, he was welcomed with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. The dwarven leaders, proud and cautious, listened as Kale presented Rael's vision. "We seek to build a future where the skills and strengths of all races are celebrated and utilized," Kale said, his voice echoing through the stone halls. "The craftsmanship and engineering prowess of the dwarven clans are unmatched. Together, we can achieve greatness." The dwarven leaders, known for their deliberative processes, took their time to discuss Kale's proposal. They examined the gifts he brought, tested the quality of the metals and gems, and questioned him thoroughly about Rael's intentions. In the end, the promise of a strong alliance and the respect shown for their traditions convinced the dwarves to join Rael's coalition. They pledged their master craftsmen and engineers to aid in the construction and fortification efforts at Darkhold. In the west, a scholar named Alara made her way to the coastal settlements, seeking an alliance with their powerful navy. Alara, known for her intelligence and diplomatic finesse, carried with her maps and detailed plans showcasing the strategic benefits of an alliance. The coastal settlements, governed by a council of seasoned sea captains, were wary of outsiders. But Alara's knowledge of naval tactics and her respectful approach earned her an audience with the council. She presented Rael's vision with clarity and conviction, emphasizing the strategic advantages of a united front. With your powerful navy and our combined forces, we can ensure the safety of our coasts and trade routes, Alara explained, her voice calm and persuasive. Together, we can protect our people and create a prosperous future. The sea captains, after a lengthy discussion, saw the merit in Alara's proposal. The potential for secure trade routes and the promise of mutual protection swayed their decision. They agreed to an alliance, pledging their ships and experienced sailors to Rael's cause. While the emissaries worked tirelessly to secure these alliances, Rael focused on maintaining the stability and strength of his own territory. He oversaw the continued training and integration of the new recruits, ensuring that the diverse members of his forces worked together seamlessly. Mixed unit training sessions became a staple of daily life at Darkhold. Soldiers, craftsmen, engineers, and medics collaborated on simulated missions, honing their skills and building trust. Eldrick's blacksmiths worked closely with Myra's engineers to develop advanced weaponry and defenses, while Tamar's medics trained soldiers in basic first aid and survival skills. Cultural exchange programs further strengthened the bonds among the recruits. Shared meals, storytelling sessions, and workshops allowed individuals from different backgrounds to learn from one another and appreciate their diverse heritages. As weeks turned into months, the first reports from the emissaries began to arrive. Some factions, wary of Rael's intentions, required more convincing. Others were immediately receptive to the idea of an alliance. The messages of unity and cooperation resonated particularly well with those who had suffered under the chaotic rule of smaller warlords and bandits. Rael hosted several delegations at Darkhold, showcasing the strength and unity of his forces and the prosperous conditions within the stronghold. These visits helped to solidify trust and demonstrate the benefits of joining Rael's coalition. One evening, as the sun set over Darkhold, Rael stood on the battlements, reflecting on the progress made. The alliances forged with the free cities, the dwarven clans, and the coastal settlements had significantly strengthened his position. His vision of a united front against common enemies was becoming a reality. Lysandra joined him, her gaze thoughtful as she looked out over the bustling stronghold. "We've come a long way," she said, her voice tinged with pride. "But there's still much to do." Rael nodded, his resolve unwavering. "Yes, there is. But with these new alliances, we are stronger than ever. We will continue to build and expand, and together, we will achieve our vision of a united and peaceful realm." The air was filled with the hum of activity as emissaries returned to Darkhold, bearing news of their diplomatic missions. Each brought back stories of tense negotiations, hard-won trust, and the promise of new alliances. Rael, ever the vigilant leader, knew that solidifying these alliances was crucial for the long-term stability and strength of his burgeoning coalition. In the Grand Hall of Darkhold, Rael and his advisors gathered to hear the reports from the emissaries. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as Eamon, Kale, and Alara took their places at the table, each ready to share the results of their efforts. Eamon, who had traveled to the Free Cities, was the first to speak. "The Council of the Free Cities has agreed to an alliance," he announced, his voice filled with pride. "They see the value in our vision of unity and have pledged their support. Their archers and economic resources will be invaluable to our cause." Rael nodded, a smile of satisfaction spreading across his face. "Excellent work, Eamon. The Free Cities will be a strong ally in our fight for justice and peace." Next, Kale reported on his mission to the dwarven clans. "The dwarves were initially skeptical, but they have agreed to join our coalition," he said, his voice steady and confident. "Their master craftsmen and engineers will greatly enhance our capabilities. They were particularly impressed by the respect we showed for their traditions." "Well done, Kale," Rael replied, his eyes gleaming with approval. "The dwarves' expertise will be a tremendous asset." Finally, Alara spoke about her journey to the coastal settlements. "The sea captains have agreed to an alliance," she said, her voice calm and measured. "They recognize the strategic advantages of our coalition and have pledged their navy to our cause. This will significantly strengthen our control over the coasts and trade routes." Rael's satisfaction was palpable. "Thank you, Alara. The coastal settlements navy will be crucial in protecting our interests and ensuring safe trade." With the reports concluded, Rael and his advisors turned their attention to the next steps. It was essential to integrate these new allies smoothly and ensure that their contributions were effectively utilized. This required careful planning and coordination. Alistair proposed a series of joint training exercises to familiarize the new allies with Rael's forces. "We need to ensure that our troops can work seamlessly with the new recruits," he explained. "Mixed unit drills will help build trust and cooperation." Lysandra suggested hosting a grand assembly at Darkhold, where representatives from each allied faction could meet and discuss their shared goals. "This will not only strengthen our bonds but also provide a platform for open dialogue and cooperation," she said. Rael agreed with both proposals. "Let's move forward with the training exercises and the Grand Assembly," he decided. "We must demonstrate our commitment to unity and mutual respect." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity as Rael's forces prepared for the arrival of their new allies. The training grounds were expanded to accommodate the influx of soldiers, craftsmen, engineers, and sailors. Eldrick and Mira worked tirelessly to ensure that the new recruits had the equipment they needed, while Tamar and her medics set up additional field hospitals. The first joint training exercise was held on a clear, crisp morning. Soldiers from the free cities, dwarven clans, and coastal settlements gathered alongside Rael's forces, their faces reflecting a mixture of curiosity and determination. The exercise, designed by Alistair, involved a simulated siege, requiring the combined efforts of all units to succeed. As the exercise began, it quickly became apparent that there were challenges to overcome. The different factions had their own fighting styles and tactics, which initially led to confusion and miscommunication. However, under Alistair's careful guidance, they began to find common ground. Eldrick's blacksmiths and the dwarven craftsmen collaborated on fortifying the defenses, sharing techniques and insights that improved their efficiency. Myra's engineers worked with the coastal settlers to operate the siege equipment, learning new methods and refining their strategies. Tamar's medics provided support to all units, ensuring that everyone received the care they needed. Throughout the exercise, Rael moved among the troops, offering encouragement and advice. He took the time to speak with soldiers from each faction, listening to their concerns and reinforcing the importance of unity. "Remember, we are stronger together," Rael told them. "Each of you brings unique strengths to our coalition. By working together, we can achieve greatness." As the days passed, the joint training exercises continued, and the bonds among the recruits deepened. The initial challenges gave way to a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect. Soldiers from different factions began to share their stories and traditions, finding common ground and learning from one another. The Grand Assembly at Darkhold was the culmination of these efforts. Representatives from each allied faction gathered in the Grand Hall, their banners and insignias proudly displayed. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism, as leaders from diverse backgrounds came together to discuss their shared vision. Rael stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding respect. "Welcome, friends and allies," he began, his voice resonant and confident. "Today, we stand united in our commitment to justice and peace. We have come together from different lands and traditions, but we share a common goal. Let us work together to build a future where our strengths are celebrated, and our people can thrive." The assembly was marked by spirited discussions and collaborative planning. Representatives shared their insights and expertise, identifying areas where their contributions could make the most significant impact. The free cities offered their economic support and skilled archers, the dwarven clans pledged their master craftsmen and engineers, and the coastal settlements committed their powerful navy. Lysandra facilitated the discussions, ensuring that each faction's voice was heard and that their contributions were integrated into the coalition's overall strategy. Alistair outlined the next steps for joint training and operations, emphasizing the importance of coordination and communication. As the assembly drew to a close, Rael felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The alliances forged through diplomacy and mutual respect had strengthened his coalition and expanded its influence. The new allies brought unique strengths and perspectives, enhancing the coalition's capabilities and resilience. In the days that followed, Rael continued to focus on integrating the new allies into his forces. Mixed unit training sessions became a regular part of life at Darkhold, fostering trust and cooperation among the recruits. Cultural exchange programs further deepened the bonds among the diverse members of the coalition, creating a sense of unity and shared purpose. Chapter 13. The Battle of Shattered Peaks. The air was heavy with tension as Rael and his advisors gathered around the war table in Darkhold's Grand Hall. Maps of the region were spread before them, detailing the strategic significance of Shattered Peaks, a narrow mountain pass that held the key to controlling the surrounding territories. Intelligence reports had confirmed that a coalition of undead and goblins, led by a cunning necromancer and a ruthless goblin warlord, were preparing to challenge Rael's forces in a decisive battle. Rael's eyes were sharp and determined as he addressed his assembled leaders. "We face a formidable enemy," he began, his voice steady and commanding. "But we are stronger together. Our diversity is our greatest strength, and we will use it to our advantage. Shattered Peaks is crucial. We cannot allow the enemy to gain a foothold there." Alistair, ever the strategist, leaned forward, tracing the terrain on the map with his finger. "The narrow passes work to our advantage," he said. "We can use the terrain to funnel the enemy into choke points and ambush them. Our goal should be to disrupt their formations and prevent the necromancer from using his dark magic effectively." Serafina nodded in agreement, her eyes glowing with a fierce determination. "I will lead the mages in countering the necromancer's spells. We must disrupt his power if we are to stand a chance against the undead." Grushak, the orc chieftain, clenched his massive fists, his face a mask of grim resolve. "My warriors will hold the front line," he growled. "We will not let the goblins break through." Mira, the brilliant engineer, spoke up next. "We can deploy siege weapons and defensive mechanisms along the narrow passes. The dwarven engineers are ready to support the frontline fighters and create strategic choke points." Rael listened carefully to each of his advisors, formulating a plan that would leverage their combined strengths. "We will split our forces into 3 main groups," he decided. "Alistair, you will command the ground troops and coordinate the ambushes. Serafina, you will lead the mages and counter the necromancer's spells. Grushak, your warriors will hold the front line and engage the goblins directly. Mira, position your engineers to provide support and deploy siege weapons. With the plan set, Rael turned to address his entire army, gathered in the courtyard of Darkhold. His voice rang out with confidence and authority. Today, we face a great challenge. But we are not just soldiers. We are a united force, bound by a common goal. We fight not for conquest, but for a future of peace and justice. Together, we will prevail. The response was a resounding cheer, a testament to the unity and determination of Rael's coalition. As dawn approached, the army mobilized, marching towards Shattered Peaks with purpose and resolve. The journey to Shattered Peaks was arduous, the rocky terrain and narrow paths testing the endurance of Rael's forces. But the soldiers marched with unwavering determination, their spirits bolstered by the knowledge that they were fighting for a greater cause. As they neared the battlefield, Rael and his commanders positioned their forces according to the plan. The narrow passes and treacherous terrain of Shattered Peaks would serve as natural defenses, allowing Rael's forces to create strategic choke points and ambush points. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a golden glow over the peaks, when the first signs of the enemy appeared. Shadows moved among the rocks, and the distant sound of clinking armor and guttural voices echoed through the pass. Rael stood at the forefront of his army, his eyes scanning the horizon. He could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation of the impending clash. "Hold the line," he commanded, his voice steady and calm. "Wait for my signal." The enemy forces emerged from the shadows, a terrifying mix of undead warriors and goblin marauders. At their head was the necromancer, a figure shrouded in dark robes, his eyes glowing with malevolent energy. Beside him stood the goblin warlord, a hulking brute with a twisted smile. The battle began with a roar as the enemy charged forward, their war cries echoing through the mountains. Rael gave the signal, and his forces sprang into action. Alistair's ground troops, hidden among the rocks, launched a surprise ambush, raining arrows and throwing spears down upon the advancing enemy. The initial chaos of the ambush disrupted the enemy's formations, but the necromancer quickly rallied his forces, casting dark spells to counter the attack. Serafina and her mages responded in kind, unleashing powerful spells of fire and lightning to counter the necromancer's magic. Grushak and his orc warriors met the goblin marauders head-on, their battle cries mixing with the clash of steel as they engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The narrow passes forced the combatants into close quarters, the rocky terrain making every step a struggle. Myra's engineers deployed their siege weapons with precision, launching projectiles that created strategic barriers and further disrupted the enemy's advance. The combined efforts of the engineers and the frontline fighters created a formidable defense, holding the enemy at bay. As the battle raged on, Rael moved through the ranks, his sword flashing in the sunlight as he cut down enemies and rallied his troops. He could see the necromancer in the distance, casting spells and directing his undead minions. Rael knew that taking down the necromancer was crucial to their victory. With a determined nod to Serafina, Rael signaled for her to focus her efforts on the necromancer. She and her mages began a coordinated assault, their spells targeting the dark figure with unrelenting force. The necromancer, caught off guard by the intensity of the attack, struggled to maintain control over his forces. Seizing the opportunity, Rael led a daring charge through the enemy ranks, cutting a path towards the necromancer. His soldiers followed, their resolve unshaken by the fierce resistance they faced. The clash was brutal, the air filled with the sounds of battle and the acrid smell of magic. Finally, Rael reached the necromancer, their eyes locking in a moment of mutual recognition. The necromancer's eyes blazed with fury and desperation as he raised his staff, casting a powerful spell. Rael, his reflexes honed by years of combat, dodged the attack and closed the distance between them. The duel was fierce, Rael's sword clashing against the necromancer's dark magic. Each strike and parry was a test of skill and resolve, the stakes higher than ever. But Rael's determination and the strength of his coalition gave him the edge. With a final, decisive blow, Rael's sword pierced the necromancer's defenses, striking him down. The necromancer's eyes widened in shock and pain before the light faded from them, and he crumpled to the ground. The fall of their leader sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks. The undead warriors, no longer bound by the necromancer's dark magic, collapsed into lifeless heaps. The goblin marauders, demoralized and leaderless, began to retreat in disarray. Rael's forces, sensing victory, pressed their advantage, driving the enemy from the battlefield. The cheers of triumph echoed through Shattered Peaks as the last of the goblins fled into the mountains. With the battle won, Rael and his commanders surveyed the aftermath. The battlefield was littered with the remnants of the enemy forces, a testament to the ferocity of the clash. But the victory was theirs, hard-won and well-deserved. Rael addressed his weary but victorious troops, his voice filled with pride and gratitude. "Today, we have shown the true strength of our unity. We faced a formidable enemy and emerged victorious. This victory is not just ours, but testament to the power of our coalition. Together, we will continue to fight for a future of peace and justice." As the echoes of the battle's final clash faded into the distance, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain of shattered peaks. Rael stood amidst the remnants of the battlefield, his sword still gleaming with the residue of dark magic. The necromancer's fall had turned the tide decisively in their favor, but the work was far from over. The air was thick with the acrid smell of magic and blood. Soldiers moved among the fallen, tending to the wounded and securing the area. The ground was littered with the lifeless forms of undead warriors and goblin marauders, their defeat a testament to the fierce resolve and unity of Rael's coalition. Rael took a moment to catch his breath, his eyes scanning the battlefield. He could see his commanders rallying their troops, organizing the aftermath. Serafina's mages were already at work, casting healing spells on the wounded and ensuring that any lingering dark magic was dispelled. Alistair's ground troops were securing the perimeter, while Grushak and his orc warriors gathered the survivors of the enemy forces, ensuring none would escape to regroup. Rael approached Serafina, who was directing her mages with practiced efficiency. Her face, though marked with the strain of battle, was resolute. "Serafina," he called, his voice carrying over the sounds of the busy battlefield. "How fare our wounded?" She turned to him, a flicker of relief crossing her features. "We've sustained casualties, but our medics are doing all they can. The worst of the injuries are being stabilized. Your presence has been a great morale boost, Rael. The men fought bravely, knowing you were with them." Rael nodded, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You and your mages were pivotal in countering the necromancer's magic. We couldn't have done this without you. Keep up the good work." As Rael moved through the ranks, offering words of encouragement and gratitude, he came upon Alistair, who was deep in conversation with Mira. The dwarf engineer was explaining the deployment of their siege weapons, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of victory. "The trebuchets performed flawlessly," Mira was saying, her voice animated. "And the barriers we set up held the line exactly as planned. The enemy didn't stand a chance once we disrupted their formations." Alistair, ever the strategist, nodded in approval. "Your ingenuity was crucial, Mira. Those siege weapons and defensive barriers were game changers. We'll need to document everything that worked well today so we can replicate our success in future battles." Rael joined them, a smile tugging at his lips. "Mira, Alistair, your coordination was exemplary. We've proven that our combined strengths make us a formidable force." Mira beamed with pride, and Alistair gave a satisfied nod. "Thank you, Rael," Mira said. "It was a team effort, and I'm proud to be a part of it." Turning his attention to Grushak, Rael found the orc chieftain overseeing the capture of the remaining enemy forces. The goblins, leaderless and demoralized, had surrendered en masse. The orcs, their bloodlust sated, were now ensuring that the captives were secured and treated according to Rael's principles of justice and mercy. "Grushak," Rael called, approaching the chieftain. "Excellent work today. Your warriors held the line with unmatched ferocity." Grushak turned, his fierce expression softening slightly at Rael's words. "We fought well, Rael," he rumbled. "The goblins were no match for our strength. But it was your leadership that united us." Rael placed a hand on Grushak's arm, a gesture of mutual respect. "It's our combined strength that makes us powerful. Together, we'll build a future where all our people can thrive." With the battlefield secured and the enemy forces defeated, Rael's attention turned to the strategic implications of their victory. Shattered Peaks was a crucial location, and holding it would provide a significant advantage in the region. He called a meeting of his key advisors to discuss their next steps. In a makeshift command tent, Rael, Serafina, Alistair, Mira, and Grushak gathered around a map of the region. The tent was filled with the low hum of discussion as they analyzed the terrain and the potential threats still looming. "We need to fortify our position here," Alistair began, tracing the mountain passes with his finger. "Shattered Peaks controls access to several key areas. If we can hold this location, we can prevent any future incursions from enemy forces." Mira nodded in agreement. "We can use the existing fortifications and enhance them with our siege weapons and defensive mechanisms. The dwarves can set up watchtowers and barriers that will make it nearly impossible for any enemy to approach undetected." Rael listened intently, his mind racing with possibilities. "We also need to consider our supply lines," he added. "Ensuring that we can sustain our forces here is crucial. We'll need to establish secure routes for food, medicine, and reinforcements." Grushak, ever practical, chimed in. "My warriors can patrol the surrounding area and keep the paths clear. We'll ensure that no enemy slips through our defenses." Serafina leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "We should also consider the spiritual aspect. The necromancer's magic may have left lingering effects. My mages and I will conduct rituals to cleanse the area and ensure that no dark magic remains." Rael nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction at the unity and competence of his team. "We have a solid plan," he said. "Let's get to work. We've won the battle, but we must secure our victory and prepare for whatever comes next." Over the following days, Rael's forces worked tirelessly to fortify Shattered Peaks. Under Myra's direction, the dwarven engineers constructed watchtowers, barriers, and siege platforms that provided strategic advantages over the rugged terrain. The soldiers, guided by Alistair's tactical expertise, set up patrols and defensive positions to monitor and protect the area. Serafina and her mages performed cleansing rituals, purging any remnants of the necromancer's dark magic from the battlefield. The air, once heavy with the taint of dark spells, gradually lightened, and a sense of peace began to settle over the peaks. Rael spent his days overseeing the efforts, offering guidance and encouragement to his troops. He knew that their unity and determination were their greatest assets, and he was committed to fostering a sense of shared purpose and camaraderie among his diverse forces. One evening, as the sun set over the fortified peaks, Rael called a gathering of his key leaders. They assembled around a large fire, the flickering flames casting warm light over their faces. The atmosphere was one of quiet celebration and reflection. "We've achieved something remarkable here," Rael began, his voice carrying a mix of pride and gratitude. "Shattered Peaks was a crucial victory, and we've proven that our unity is our greatest strength. But this is just the beginning. We must remain vigilant and continue to build on our success." Grushak raised a tankard in salute. "To unity and strength," he declared, his deep voice resonating with conviction. "Together, we are unstoppable." Chapter 14. Diplomatic Maneuvers. The victory at Shattered Peaks had solidified Rael's reputation as a formidable leader, but he knew that military might alone would not secure lasting peace and stability. To truly unify the realm, he needed to reach out to those who had long been considered enemies, including the powerful factions of the Underworld. Rael understood that diplomacy was now his most valuable weapon. In the Grand Hall of Darkhold, Rael and his advisors gathered to discuss their next move. The room was filled with maps and documents detailing the various Underworld factions that held sway over vast territories and commanded considerable influence. Among these factions were the Undead, whose leaders wielded both fear and respect among their followers. "We cannot ignore the Underworld factions," Rael said, his voice steady and determined. "They hold significant power and can either be formidable allies or relentless enemies. It's time we extend an olive branch and bring them into our coalition." Lysandra nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning the maps. "The key is to approach them with respect and a clear message of mutual benefit. We must show them that an alliance with us will bring stability and prosperity, not subjugation." Rael carefully selected a group of diplomats known for their persuasive abilities and deep understanding of the complex politics within the Underworld. Among them was Alara, a seasoned diplomat who had previously succeeded in negotiating alliances with the coastal settlements. Her calm demeanor and sharp intellect made her the perfect choice for this delicate mission. Alara was joined by a small team, each member chosen for their unique skills and knowledge. Together, they set out on a series of diplomatic missions to negotiate with the key leaders of the Underworld factions. Rael personally briefed them before their departure, emphasizing the importance of their mission. "Remember, you represent not just our coalition, but the vision of a united and peaceful realm," Rael told them, his gaze steady and confident. "Approach them with respect and sincerity. Show them that we are committed to a future where all can prosper." With these words of encouragement, the emissaries embarked on their journey. Their first destination was the territory of Thaler, a powerful undead lord who commanded a vast army of loyal followers. Thaler was known for his cunning and strategic brilliance, and his support could greatly enhance Rael's coalition. The journey to Thaler's domain was fraught with danger. The path led through dark forests and desolate wastelands, where the presence of undead sentinels could be felt even in the shadows. Despite the peril, Alara and her team pressed on, driven by their mission's importance. Upon reaching Thaler's stronghold, they were met by a contingent of heavily armed undead guards. The air was thick with tension as the guards escorted them through the fortress's dark corridors, finally bringing them before Thaler himself. Thaler's throne room was a grand but eerie chamber, lit by flickering torches that cast long shadows on the walls. The undead lord sat upon a throne of bone and iron, his eyes glowing with an unsettling light. His presence was both imposing and commanding, and Alara knew that this would be no easy negotiation. "Lord Thaler," Alara began, her voice steady but respectful. "I am Alara, an emissary of Rael's coalition. We come to you with a message of peace and a proposal for alliance." Thaler's gaze was inscrutable as he regarded Alara and her companions. "A message of peace, from those who have long hunted us," he said, his voice cold and resonant. "Why should we trust you?" Alara took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Because we recognize your strength and the value of your people. We seek not to hunt or subjugate, but to unite. Together, we can create a realm where all are respected and have a place in the future we build." The room was silent as Thaler considered her words. Alara could feel the weight of his scrutiny, the calculating mind behind those glowing eyes. She continued, undeterred by the tension in the air. "We offer mutual benefit," she said, gesturing to the gifts they had brought, fine weapons, rare tomes of magic, and precious artifacts. "An alliance with us means protection and prosperity for your people. Together, we can ensure stability and security." Thaler leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And what guarantees do we have that you will honor this alliance? That you will not turn against us once your goals are achieved?" Alara met his gaze unwaveringly. "The only guarantee we can offer is our commitment to a shared vision." Rail believes in a future where all factions, all races, can coexist in peace. Our actions, our willingness to come here and negotiate, are proof of that commitment. Thaler's eyes bore into hers for a long moment before he finally spoke. Very well, Alara, I will consider your proposal. But know this, if you betray us, the consequences will be dire. With that, the meeting concluded, and Alara and her team were escorted out of the stronghold. The tension had not lifted, but there was a sense of cautious optimism. They had planted the seeds of a potential alliance, and now they could only wait for Thaler's decision. Meanwhile, other emissaries were undertaking similar missions with different underworld factions. Each negotiation was fraught with its own challenges, but the underlying message remained the same: unity and mutual benefit. One emissary, a skilled negotiator named Darius, traveled to the domain of a vampire lord known for his vast influence and strategic acumen. The vampire lord, wary of betrayal, required extensive convincing, but Darius's persistence and eloquence gradually wore down his defenses. Another emissary, Lyra, ventured into the labyrinthine catacombs of a lich who commanded an army of skeletal warriors. The lich, intrigued by the promise of knowledge and power, was initially skeptical but gradually warmed to the idea of an alliance after several intense discussions. Back at Darkhold, Rail received regular updates from his emissaries, their reports filled with both successes and setbacks. He knew that these negotiations were just the beginning of a long and complex process, but he remained hopeful that their efforts would bear fruit. Days turned into weeks, and the first signs of progress began to emerge. Alara received a message from Thaler, inviting her to return for further discussions. The vampire lord agreed to meet with Darius again, and the lich expressed interest in exchanging knowledge with Rail's scholars. Rail himself took a hands-on approach, meeting with several underworld leaders in person. His charisma and vision for the future proved to be powerful tools in persuading even the most skeptical leaders. He spoke of a realm where all factions had a stake in the future, where cooperation replaced conflict, and where peace and prosperity were achievable goals. One particularly tense negotiation took place in the shadowy domain of a Death Knight who had long been a fierce opponent of any form of alliance. Rail, undeterred by the Death Knight's intimidating presence, spoke passionately about the need for unity in the face of common threats. "You have seen the chaos that division brings," Rail said, his voice firm and resolute. "We face threats that no single faction can withstand alone. Together, we can build a future where all our people can live without fear, where we can focus on growth and prosperity rather than constant war." The Death Knight, initially unmoved, slowly began to see the wisdom in Rail's words. By the end of their meeting, he agreed to a tentative truce, with the possibility of a full alliance if further discussions proved fruitful. As more underworld leaders began to warm to the idea of an alliance, Rail's coalition grew stronger and more diverse. The inclusion of these factions not only expanded his military capabilities but also enriched the cultural and intellectual landscape of his realm. The efforts of Rail's emissaries had begun to bear fruit, but the real test lay in solidifying these tentative agreements into enduring alliances. The underworld factions, with their complex politics and deep-seated mistrust, required careful handling. Rail, understanding the delicate nature of these negotiations, decided to meet several key leaders personally. One of the first leaders Rail chose to engage with directly was Thaler, the powerful undead lord. Alara had made significant headway in her initial discussions, but Thaler remained cautious. Rail hoped that his presence would reassure Thaler of their sincere intentions. Accompanied by a small contingent of trusted advisors and Alara, Rail journeyed back to Thaler's stronghold. The path through the dark forests and desolate wastelands was perilous, but Rail's determination was unwavering. The undead sentinels watched silently as they approached, their eyes glowing faintly in the gloom. Thaler's throne room was just as imposing as Rail remembered, with the undead lord seated upon his throne of bone and iron. Rail stepped forward, bowing slightly in respect. "Lord Thaler, thank you for granting us this audience." Thaler's eyes gleamed with curiosity and suspicion. "Rail," he acknowledged, his voice a deep, resonant echo. "You come in person. That is unexpected." Rail met Thaler's gaze steadily. "I believe in the importance of this alliance. Words alone are not enough. I want to demonstrate my commitment to a future where we work together." Thaler's expression remained inscrutable, but he gestured for Rail to continue. Taking a deep breath, Rail outlined the benefits of the alliance, emphasizing mutual protection, shared prosperity, and the opportunity to create a stable, peaceful realm. "We have common enemies who thrive on our divisions," Rail said, his voice filled with conviction. "Together, we can create a future where our people live without fear. Your strength and wisdom are invaluable, Lord Thaler. We offer respect and a place of honor in this new order." For a moment, there was silence. Then Thaler spoke, his tone contemplative. "Your words carry weight, Rail. But actions speak louder. Prove to me that you mean what you say." Rail nodded. "What do you propose?" Thaler leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "There is a rival undead lord who has long been a thorn in my side. Defeat him, and I will know you are serious about this alliance." Understanding the gravity of the challenge, Rail agreed. We will bring him down, he promised. Together, leaving Thaler's stronghold, Rael and his team began preparations for the mission. The rival undead lord, known as Vorith, commanded a formidable force and was infamous for his ruthlessness. The battle ahead would be challenging, but Rael was determined to prove their commitment. Back at Darkhold, Rael gathered his commanders to discuss the strategy. This mission is crucial, he said. Defeating Vorith will not only secure Thaler's alliance but also send a powerful message to other potential allies. Alistair, ever the strategist, laid out a plan. Vorith's stronghold is heavily fortified, but his forces are dispersed. We can exploit this by targeting his outlying posts first, weakening his defenses before the main assault. Mira and her engineers began working on siege weapons and defensive measures, while Serafina and her mages prepared spells to counter Vorith's dark magic. Grushak's orc warriors were eager for the fight, their fierce loyalty to Rael a testament to his leadership. The journey to Vorith's territory was arduous, but Rael's forces were well prepared. They moved with precision and stealth, striking Vorith's outposts swiftly and efficiently. The initial skirmishes were brutal, but Rael's coalition proved their mettle, overcoming each challenge with determination and skill. As they approached Vorith's stronghold, the final battle loomed. Rael addressed his forces, his voice calm but resolute. Today, we fight not just for victory, but for a future where all our people can thrive. Together, we will bring down this tyrant and prove the strength of our unity. The assault began at dawn, the first light of day casting long shadows over the battlefield. Rael's forces launched a coordinated attack, with Myra's siege weapons battering the stronghold's walls and Serafina's mages unleashing spells to disrupt Vorith's defenses. Vorith's forces, though formidable, were caught off guard by the ferocity and coordination of Rael's assault. The battle raged fiercely, with Grushak's orc warriors leading the charge through the breached walls. The clash of steel and the crackle of magic filled the air as both sides fought with unrelenting determination. Rael himself led a contingent of elite soldiers, cutting a path through the chaos towards Vorith's command post. The undead lord, a towering figure clad in dark armor, awaited them with a cadre of his most loyal warriors. The confrontation was intense, a brutal test of strength and resolve. Vorith's dark magic clashed with Serafina's spells, while Rael and his soldiers engaged in fierce combat with the undead warriors. The battle hung in the balance, each side fighting with everything they had. With a final, decisive effort, Rael and his team broke through Vorith's defenses. Rael faced Vorith directly, their blades clashing in a fierce duel. The undead lord was powerful, his strikes imbued with dark energy, but Rael fought with the strength of his convictions and the support of his allies. In a climactic moment, Rael's blade found its mark, piercing through Vorith's armor. The undead lord's eyes widened in shock and fury before the light faded from them. With Vorith's fall, his forces crumbled, their morale shattered. The battlefield fell silent as the last of Vorith's warriors were defeated. Rael's forces stood victorious, their triumph a testament to their unity and strength. As they regrouped and tended to the wounded, Rael knew that they had proven their commitment not just to Thaler, but to all their potential allies. Returning to Thaler's stronghold, Rael and his team were met with a mix of curiosity and respect. Thaler himself greeted them, his expression one of guarded approval. "You have done well," he said. "Vorith is defeated, and you have proven your commitment. The alliance stands." Rael bowed slightly in acknowledgement. "We are honored, Lord Thaler. Together, we will build a future where all our people can thrive." With Thaler's alliance secured, Rael turned his attention to other potential allies. The successful mission had strengthened their position, and word of their victory spread quickly. Other Underworld leaders, seeing the strength and determination of Rael's coalition, began to consider the benefits of joining forces. One such leader was the vampire lord Darius had previously engaged. The vampire lord, impressed by the news of Vorith's defeat, invited Rael for further discussions. Rael accepted, knowing that securing the vampire lord's support would be a significant step forward. The meeting took place in a grand, shadowy hall, lit by the soft glow of enchanted lamps. The vampire lord, a tall, elegant figure with an air of calculated menace, regarded Rael with keen interest. "You have demonstrated your strength and resolve," he said, "but what assurances can you offer that this alliance will benefit us?" Rael spoke with confidence, outlining the mutual benefits of their cooperation. "Together, we can create a stable and prosperous realm. Your people will have security and a voice in the new order we build. We offer respect, protection, and the opportunity to shape the future." The vampire lord listened intently, his expression thoughtful. After a long pause, he nodded. "Very well, Rael. We will join your coalition. But remember, our loyalty is earned, not given." Chapter 15. Betrayal and Revenge. Rael's coalition had reached new heights of power and influence, but even as they secured alliances and expanded their reach, a shadow from his past continued to loom over him. The revelation that his brother, who had orchestrated his poisoning, had risen to power as a rival lord was a bitter pill to swallow. The news came to Rael through a network of spies and informants, confirming that his brother had used treachery and deceit to carve out a domain for himself. In the grand hall of Darkhold, Rael gathered his most trusted advisors, Lysandra, Alistair, Serafina, and Grushak. The tension was palpable as they discussed the implications of this new threat. My brother's rise to power cannot go unchecked, Rael declared, his voice filled with a steely determination. He is a threat not only to our coalition but to the vision of unity and peace we are striving to build. His betrayal still haunts me, and now, it's time to confront him and put an end to his machinations. Lysandra, ever the strategist, nodded in agreement. This confrontation is necessary, Rael. But we must approach it with caution. Your brother will be expecting retribution, and he will have fortified his stronghold against any attack. Alistair leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. We need a plan that allows us to strike swiftly and decisively. A small, elite force could infiltrate the stronghold and take him by surprise. Speed and precision will be our greatest assets. Serafina added, I can provide magical support to shield our approach and disrupt his defenses. We will need to be prepared for anything. He may have allied himself with dark forces or mercenaries. Grushak grunted in agreement. My warriors are ready to fight by your side, Rael. We owe you our loyalty, and we will see this through. With the plan set, Rael selected a group of his most skilled and trusted soldiers for the mission. They would strike under the cover of darkness, using stealth and strategy to breach the castle defenses. Rael himself would lead the charge, determined to confront his brother and exact the justice he had long sought. As they prepared for the journey, Rael took a moment to reflect on the path that had brought him here. The betrayal by his brother had been a turning point, setting him on a journey of transformation and leadership. Now, it was time to face that past and close this painful chapter. The journey to his brother's stronghold was fraught with tension. The elite force moved silently through the night, their steps muffled by the thick underbrush of the forest. The castle loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the starlit sky. Its walls were high and formidable, but Rael's resolve was unshakable. Upon reaching the castle, Rael and his team observed the guards' patrol patterns, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Alistair signaled for the team to move, and with practiced precision, they scaled the walls and infiltrated the stronghold. Serafina cast a spell of silence, muffling their movements and allowing them to pass unnoticed. Inside the castle, the tension was palpable. Rael could feel his heart pounding in his chest as they navigated the dimly lit corridors. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every sound a potential alarm. But they moved with purpose, driven by the mission at hand. As they approached the Grand Hall, where Rael's brother held court, the elite force split into two groups. One group, led by Alistair, would secure the perimeter and prevent any reinforcements from entering. The other, led by Rael, would confront his brother directly. The doors to the Grand Hall were massive, adorned with intricate carvings and iron fittings. Rael took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation ahead. With a nod to his team, he pushed the doors open and stepped inside. The hall was grand and opulent, a stark contrast to the darkness outside. Tapestries adorned the walls, and a massive chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the room. At the far end of the hall, seated on a throne, was Rael's brother. His brother's eyes widened in surprise as Rael entered, but the surprise quickly turned to a sneer. Rael, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. I wondered when you would come. Have you come to grovel, or to die? Rael's grip tightened on his sword. I've come to end this, he replied, his voice steady. Your betrayal will not go unanswered. You poisoned me, tried to take everything from me. But you failed. Now, I'm here to make things right. His brother rose from the throne, drawing his own sword. You always were the noble one, Rael. But nobility won't save you now. The tension in the room was electric as the two brothers faced off. The years of betrayal, anger, and resentment culminated in this moment. With a roar, Rael's brother lunged forward, his sword flashing in the light. Rael parried the attack, their swords clashing with a resounding clang. The battle was fierce and intense, each strike and parry fueled by years of pent-up emotion. Rael's brother fought with the desperation of a man cornered, his attacks wild and aggressive. But Rael fought with purpose and determination, his movements controlled and precise. As the battle raged on, it became clear that Rael had the upper hand. His brother's attacks grew more frantic, his movements more desperate. With a final, decisive strike, Rael disarmed his brother, sending his sword clattering to the ground. Rael stood over his fallen brother, his sword pointed at his chest. This is the end, he said, his voice filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. Your reign of treachery and deceit is over. His brother looked up at him, a mix of fear and anger in his eyes. You think you've won, Rael? This isn't over. It will never be over. With a swift motion, Rael ended the confrontation, his sword piercing his brother's heart. The light faded from his brother's eyes, and he slumped to the ground, lifeless. The room fell silent, the echoes of the battle fading away. Rael stood there for a moment, his breath coming in heavy gasps. The weight of what he had done, the finality of it all, settled over him like a shroud. His advisors and elite soldiers entered the hall, their expressions a mix of relief and concern. Lysandra approached Rael, placing a hand on his shoulder. It's done, she said softly. You've put an end to his reign. Rael nodded, his gaze still fixed on his fallen brother. Yes, he said quietly. It's done. Turning to the remaining forces of his brother's stronghold, Rael addressed them with authority. Your lord is dead, he announced. You have a choice. Join our coalition and work towards a future of peace and unity, or leave in peace. The choice is yours. Many of the soldiers, disillusioned by their lord's treachery, chose to swear loyalty to Rael. They saw in him a leader who valued justice and unity, and they were eager to be part of his vision for the future. The echoes of the confrontation in the Grand Hall reverberated through Rael's mind as he led his forces out of his brother's former stronghold. The air was heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. Rael's brother, the architect of his deepest suffering, was now dead. The mission that had driven him for so long was complete, but the victory felt bittersweet. As they returned to Darkhold, the elite force marched with a quiet resolve. The weight of their leader's personal victory lay heavy on their shoulders, understanding that this was more than just a tactical triumph. Rael's silence spoke volumes, his usually confident demeanor now introspective. His advisors, though respecting his need for reflection, stayed close, ready to offer their support. Upon their return to Darkhold, Rael immediately convened a meeting with his key advisors. The main hall was filled with a tense, somber atmosphere as they gathered to discuss the implications of the confrontation and their next steps. Rael, standing at the head of the table, took a deep breath before addressing his most trusted allies. My brother is dead, Rael began, his voice steady but tinged with a weariness that spoke of the emotional toll the confrontation had taken. His threat has been eliminated, but we must not let this moment define us. We have a greater mission, one that transcends personal vendettas. We must continue to build our coalition and work towards the unity and peace we seek. Lysandra nodded, her expression one of resolute determination. We must capitalize on this victory, Rael. Your brother's forces, now disillusioned and leaderless, can be integrated into our coalition. Their skills and resources will be invaluable. Alistair, ever the strategist, added, we need to ensure stability within the regions your brother controlled. His death will create a power vacuum, and we must act swiftly to prevent chaos. We should send emissaries to secure alliances and establish our authority. Serafina, with her calm and measured demeanor, suggested, we should also focus on healing the wounds left by this conflict. Many have suffered under your brother's rule, and we must show them that we are different. We must offer them hope and a vision of a better future. Grushak, the Orc chieftain, leaned forward, his voice a deep rumble of agreement. Our strength lies in our unity, Rael. We will stand by you and support you in this endeavor. Rael listened to his advisors, their words reinforcing his own resolve. He knew that they were right, this was a pivotal moment for their coalition. They had to move forward, using this victory as a foundation to build upon. With a sense of purpose, Rael began to outline their next steps. We will send emissaries to the regions formerly controlled by my brother, Rael decided. Lysandra, you will lead this effort. Ensure that our message is clear. We offer protection, stability, and a place in our vision for the future. We must win their trust and loyalty. Alistair nodded, already formulating plans. I will organize patrols to secure the borders and ensure that no opportunistic factions try to exploit the power vacuum. Our presence must be strong and reassuring. Serafina added, I will mobilize the mages to provide aid and support to the affected regions. We will heal the land and the people, showing them that we are here to help, not to conquer. With their plans in motion, Rael felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead was clear, and he was ready to lead his coalition towards a future of unity and peace. The confrontation with his brother had been a necessary step, but it was only the beginning of their journey. As the days passed, Rael's coalition moved swiftly to stabilize the regions formerly under his brother's control. Lysandra's emissaries, carrying messages of hope and unity, were received with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Many had suffered under Rael's brother and were wary of new leadership. However, the clear, genuine intentions of the emissaries began to win hearts and minds. In the villages and towns, Rael's forces worked tirelessly to repair the damage left by the previous regime. Serafina's mages healed the wounded and provided essential aid, while Alistair's soldiers ensured security and order. Grushak's orcs, once feared, now earned the respect and gratitude of the people by helping to rebuild homes and infrastructure. One such village, Shadowbrook, had been particularly ravaged by Rael's brother's harsh rule. The arrival of Rael's forces brought a cautious sense of hope. The village elder, an old man named Jareth, greeted Lysandra's emissary with a mix of suspicion and desperation. Why should we trust you? Jareth asked, his voice trembling with the weight of years of suffering. We've heard promises before, and they've always been lies. The emissary, a young woman named Alara, met his gaze with steady resolve. Because we are here to make things right, she said. Rael is committed to a future where all can thrive. We offer protection, aid, and a chance to rebuild. We ask for your trust, and in return, we will prove our sincerity through our actions. Jareth studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. Very well, we will give you a chance. As Rael's forces worked alongside the villagers, helping to rebuild and provide aid, the atmosphere in Shadowbrook began to shift. The once skeptical villagers started to see the genuine efforts of their new allies. The seeds of trust and cooperation were planted, and Rael's vision of unity took root. Back in Darkhold, Rael continued to oversee the integration of his brother's former forces into his coalition. The soldiers, once loyal to a treacherous leader, were now given a choice: join Rael's vision for a united realm or leave in peace. Many chose to stay, seeing in Rael a leader who valued justice and unity. Rael addressed the newly integrated soldiers, his voice carrying the weight of his convictions. "You have seen the consequences of betrayal and division," he said. "But now, you have a chance to be part of something greater. We are building a future where all can thrive, where justice and unity prevail. I ask for your loyalty and commitment to this vision." The response was overwhelming. The soldiers, once uncertain and disillusioned, found new purpose in Rael's words. They pledged their loyalty, ready to work towards the common goal of a better future. As the days turned into weeks, the regions formerly under Rael's brother's control began to stabilize. The efforts of Rael's coalition, combined with the genuine desire to rebuild and unite, created a sense of hope and optimism. The people, once wary, began to embrace the vision of a united realm. Rael's reflections on the confrontation with his brother were complex. The personal vendetta had been resolved, but it had also reinforced his commitment to his greater mission. He understood that true leadership required more than just strength and determination. It required compassion, vision, and the ability to inspire others. In the quiet moments of reflection, Rael found solace in the progress they had made. The journey was far from over, but each step brought them closer to their goal. The confrontation with his brother had been a necessary chapter, but it was the unity and strength of his coalition that would carry them forward. One evening, as Rael stood on the battlements of Darkhold, gazing out over the bustling stronghold, Lysandra joined him. "We've come a long way," she said, her voice filled with pride. Rael nodded, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. "Yes, we have. And we will go even further. Together, we will build a future where all our people can thrive." Chapter 16. Consolidating Power. The morning sun cast its golden light over the newly unified territories, revealing a landscape marked by both hope and the scars of recent conflict. Rael stood on the battlements of Darkhold, his gaze sweeping over the lands that had once been under his brother's oppressive rule. Now, these lands were his responsibility, and he was determined to bring stability and prosperity to them. With the immediate threat of his brother's faction eliminated, Rael turned his attention to consolidating his power and ensuring that the transition of control was as smooth as possible. He gathered his most trusted advisors in the Grand Hall of Darkhold to discuss their strategy. "We have secured these territories through strength, but we must now secure them through trust and governance," Rael began, his voice steady and resolute. "Our goal is not only to rule but to unite and uplift these regions. We must show the people that our leadership is different, that we are here to build a better future for everyone." Lysandra, the master strategist, spoke next. "Our first priority should be to establish local governance that respects the customs and traditions of each region. We need to win the trust of the local leaders and integrate them into our administration. This will help prevent any potential unrest and ensure a smoother transition of power." Rael nodded in agreement. "Lysandra, I want you to oversee this process. Select emissaries who are skilled in diplomacy and negotiation. They must be able to communicate our vision effectively and build strong relationships with the local leaders." Lysandra gave a determined nod. "Consider it done, Rael. I will ensure that our emissaries are well prepared and that they understand the importance of their mission." Turning to Alistair, Rael continued, "We also need to ensure the security of these territories. Set up strategic outposts throughout the region. These will serve not only as defensive positions but also as centers for distributing aid and resources. We must show the people that we are here to help them rebuild and thrive." Alistair's face was set with determination. "I will deploy our best troops to these outposts. They will be responsible for maintaining order and providing support to the local populations. We will also conduct regular patrols to deter any potential threats or uprisings." Serafina, the head mage, added, "My mages and I will continue our work of healing and providing magical support. We will establish healing centers in each major town and village, offering our services to those in need. This will further demonstrate our commitment to their well-being." Rael smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for his loyal advisors. "Thank you all. Together, we will bring stability and prosperity to these lands." With their plans in motion, Rael's emissaries set out to the newly acquired territories. Each emissary was chosen for their diplomatic skills and understanding of local customs. They carried messages of hope and unity, promising protection, aid, and a brighter future under Rael's leadership. In the town of Greystone, one of the larger settlements, an emissary named Alara arrived to meet with the local leaders. The town had been under Rael's brother's harsh rule, and the people were wary of new leadership. Alara's mission was to win their trust and integrate them into Rael's coalition. The town square was filled with curious onlookers as Alara addressed the gathered crowd. "People of Greystone," she began, her voice carrying a tone of sincerity and conviction. "I come to you on behalf of Lord Rael. We understand the hardships you have faced, and we are here to help you rebuild and prosper. Under Lord Rael's leadership, you will have protection, support, and a voice in our united realm. The local leaders, initially skeptical, listened intently as Alara outlined the benefits of joining Rael's coalition. She spoke of shared resources, mutual protection, and the promise of a better future. Slowly, the atmosphere began to shift as the people saw the genuine intent behind her words. One of the local leaders, an elder named Jareth, stepped forward. "We have heard promises before, and we have been betrayed," he said, his voice tinged with both hope and caution. "Why should we trust you now?" Alara met his gaze with unwavering resolve. "Because our actions will speak louder than words. We are not here to conquer, we are here to build. We offer you our protection and our aid. Give us a chance to prove our sincerity." Jareth considered her words carefully before nodding. "Very well, Alara, we will give you a chance. But know this, our trust must be earned." Alara bowed her head in respect. "We understand, and we will honor your trust." As the days passed, Rael's forces worked tirelessly to fulfill their promises. Alistair's troops set up strategic outposts and conducted regular patrols, ensuring the security of the region. These outposts also served as centers for distributing food, medicine, and other essential supplies, helping to rebuild the war-torn communities. In the village of Riverbend, Serafina and her mages established a healing center. The villagers, many of whom had suffered injuries and loss, were initially hesitant to accept their help. However, as the mages healed the sick and injured, the villagers' skepticism began to fade. One day, a young boy named Tomas, who had been injured in a skirmish, was brought to the healing center. His mother, distraught and desperate, watched as Serafina and her team worked to save him. The mages used their healing magic to mend his wounds and restore his strength. When Tomas opened his eyes, his mother's tears of relief were met with grateful smiles from the villagers. "Thank you," the mother said, her voice choked with emotion. "You have saved my son's life. We will never forget your kindness." Serafina placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We are here to help. This is what Lord Rael's vision is about, healing and unity. Together, we can build a better future." The healing center quickly became a symbol of hope for the village, and word of Rael's benevolence spread throughout the region. As more villages and towns experienced the benefits of his leadership, their trust in Rael's coalition grew stronger. Back in Darkhold, Rael received regular reports from his emissaries and military commanders. The transition of power was progressing smoothly, and the regions were stabilizing. The local leaders, once wary, were now actively cooperating with Rael's emissaries, integrating their communities into the unified realm. Rael knew that this was only the beginning. Securing these territories was a critical step, but the journey to unity and peace was far from over. He continued to work closely with his advisors, planning the next phases of their mission. One evening, as Rael stood on the battlements of Darkhold, he reflected on the progress they had made. The lands that had once been a source of pain and betrayal were now being transformed into a beacon of hope and unity. The vision he had held for so long was becoming a reality, and it filled him with a deep sense of purpose. Lysandra joined him, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We've come a long way, Rael. The people are beginning to see the benefits of our leadership. They trust you." Rael nodded, a smile touching his lips. "It's because of all of us, Lysandra. This coalition, this vision, it's a collective effort. Together, we will continue to build and protect what we have created." The sun had barely risen over Darkhold when Rael convened a grand council to discuss the next steps in their journey towards unity and peace. The Great Hall buzzed with activity as emissaries, local leaders, and representatives from allied factions gathered to solidify the alliances that would ensure the stability of their newly unified territories. This council was a critical moment for Rael to demonstrate his commitment to a future where all factions, races, and regions could thrive together. Rael stood at the head of the long table, flanked by his trusted advisors, Lysandra, Alistair, Serafina, and Grushak. Each played a vital role in the coalition, and their combined strengths had brought them this far. Now, they faced the challenge of building a unified governance that respected the diversity of their allies while promoting cooperation and mutual benefit. "Thank you all for coming," Rael began, his voice carrying the authority and warmth that had earned him the loyalty of so many. "Today marks a significant step forward in our journey. We have secured these territories through strength and trust. Now, we must ensure that our unity is not just a momentary alliance, but a lasting partnership." Lysandra took the floor next, presenting a detailed plan for political integration. "Our first priority is to establish a unified legal and economic framework that respects local customs while promoting fairness and cooperation. We propose a council composed of representatives from each faction and region. This council will have the authority to make decisions on matters of trade, law, and defense." As she spoke, the council members listened intently, some nodding in agreement while others exchanged thoughtful glances. The proposal was ambitious, but it was essential for maintaining stability and ensuring that all voices were heard. One of the representatives, a seasoned leader from the Free Cities named Eric, raised his hand. "How do we ensure that this council respects the autonomy of each region while fostering unity?" he asked, his tone measured but curious. Rail nodded, acknowledging the importance of the question. Autonomy and unity are not mutually exclusive, he replied. We propose a system where each region retains control over local matters, but the Council will handle issues that affect us all, such as defense, trade agreements, and major legal matters. This way, we can work together on common goals while respecting local governance. Serafina added, our mages will also play a role in facilitating communication and cooperation between regions. We will establish magical communication networks to ensure that information flows freely and efficiently. This will help us address issues quickly and maintain a sense of connectedness across our territories. The idea of a magical communication network sparked interest among the council members. It was a practical solution that showcased the innovative spirit of Rail's coalition. As discussions continued, representatives from various factions began to see the potential benefits of such a system. Next, Alistair outlined the proposed defense strategy. We must create a coordinated defense strategy to protect our united territories from external threats. This includes the establishment of a standing army composed of the best warriors from each faction. These forces will be trained to work together seamlessly, ensuring that we can respond swiftly and effectively to any danger. Grushak grunted in agreement. Our strength lies in our unity. An integrated army will show our enemies that we stand as one, ready to defend our lands and our people. The proposal for a standing army was met with nods of approval. The need for a strong defense was undeniable, especially given the threats they had faced and the ones that loomed on the horizon. The council members understood that a united military force was crucial for maintaining the security and stability of their realm. Throughout the day, the discussions continued, covering various aspects of governance, trade, defense, and cultural exchange. Rail ensured that every voice was heard, fostering an atmosphere of respect and collaboration. The council members, though diverse in their backgrounds and perspectives, began to see the value of working together towards common goals. As the sun set over Darkhold, the Grand Council concluded with a sense of accomplishment and optimism. The foundations for a unified governance had been laid, and the path towards lasting peace and prosperity was clearer than ever. Rail stood before the assembled council members, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. Today, we have taken a significant step towards realizing our vision. Our strength lies not just in our numbers, but in our unity and our commitment to a better future. Together, we will build a realm where all can thrive. The room erupted in applause, a powerful testament to the shared determination of the coalition. The bonds forged through these discussions were strong, and Rail knew that they had laid the groundwork for a lasting partnership. In the days that followed, the plans discussed at the Grand Council were put into action. Emissaries and representatives worked tirelessly to implement the unified legal and economic framework, ensuring that local customs were respected while promoting fairness and cooperation. The magical communication network, spearheaded by Serafina and her mages, began to take shape, connecting the various regions and facilitating efficient governance. Alistair and Grushak oversaw the training and integration of the standing army. Warriors from different factions trained together, learning to work as a cohesive unit. The shared training sessions fostered camaraderie and mutual respect, further strengthening the bonds between the diverse forces. One such training session took place in a sprawling valley near Darkhold. The warriors, clad in their respective armor and wielding a variety of weapons, stood in formation as Alistair and Grushak addressed them. Today, you train not as separate factions, but as one united force, Alistair began, his voice carrying across the field. Our strength lies in our unity. Learn from each other, respect each other, and fight as one. Grushak's voice boomed in agreement. We face many challenges ahead, but together, we are unstoppable. Show the world that we are not just an alliance, but a family. The warriors responded with a resounding cheer, their voices echoing through the valley. As they began their training, the spirit of unity and determination was palpable. They were not just preparing for battle, they were building the foundation of a unified and resilient military force. Back in Darkhold, Rail continued to oversee the integration efforts. He met regularly with local leaders, addressing their concerns and ensuring that their voices were heard. His commitment to transparency and collaboration won the trust of many who had initially been skeptical of the new governance. One evening, Rail hosted a gathering of local leaders and representatives at Darkhold. The grand hall was filled with laughter and conversation as people from different regions and backgrounds shared their stories and experiences. It was a celebration of their unity and the progress they had made together. During the gathering, Rail raised a toast. To our united realm, he declared, his voice filled with pride and hope. We have come a long way, but our journey is far from over. Together, we will continue to build a future where all can thrive. The toast was met with cheers and raised glasses, a powerful symbol of their shared commitment to a better future. As the night wore on, Rail felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had faced many challenges, but their unity and determination had carried them through. With the territories secured and the alliances strengthened, Rail's vision of a united and prosperous realm was closer than ever. The foundation they had built was strong, and the bonds of trust and cooperation were unbreakable. Rail knew that there would be more challenges ahead, but he was confident that they could overcome anything together. As the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, Rael stood on the battlements of Darkhold, gazing out over the lands they had united. The journey towards unity and peace was a long one, but with the strength and loyalty of his coalition, he knew that they were on the right path. Chapter 17. The Orc Alliance. The sun had just begun to rise over Darkhold, casting long shadows across the fortress as Rael prepared for an important journey. He stood in the courtyard, surrounded by his closest advisors, ready to embark on a mission that would solidify one of the most crucial alliances in his coalition, the alliance with the Orc chieftain, Grushak. The journey to the Orc stronghold was of paramount importance. The Orcs had been loyal allies, their fierce warriors instrumental in many of Rael's victories. However, Rael understood that to ensure the lasting stability and strength of his realm, he needed to forge an even deeper bond with Grushak and his people. Grushak and the Orcs have been steadfast allies, Rael said to his advisors as they prepared to depart. But we must strengthen our ties and ensure that our alliance is more than just an agreement of convenience. We need to integrate them fully into our coalition, giving them a significant role in our governance and defense. Lysandra nodded in agreement, her eyes sharp and thoughtful. A deeper alliance with the Orcs will not only bolster our military strength but also demonstrate our commitment to unity and mutual respect. This is an opportunity to build a foundation of trust that will benefit all our people. Serafina, standing beside Lysandra, added, the Orcs have their own rich traditions and strengths. Embracing their culture and integrating it into our own will strengthen the bonds between us. This journey is as much about cultural understanding as it is about political alliance. With their objectives clear, Rael, Lysandra, Serafina, and a small delegation of trusted soldiers set out towards the Orc stronghold. The journey took them through rugged terrain and dense forests, the path often challenging but the resolve of the group unwavering. The landscape was a testament to the Orcs' resilience and their ability to thrive in harsh conditions. As they neared the Orc stronghold, Rael's thoughts turned to the first time he had met Grushak. It had been a tense and uncertain encounter, but over time, mutual respect and shared victories had transformed their relationship into a strong alliance. Now, Rael hoped to build on that foundation and create something even more enduring. The Orc stronghold came into view, a formidable structure of stone and timber, nestled among the hills. The sight was both imposing and impressive, a testament to the Orcs' strength and craftsmanship. As Rael and his delegation approached, they were greeted by a group of Orc warriors, their faces stern but respectful. Welcome, Rael, said the lead warrior, his voice a deep rumble. Chieftain Grushak awaits you. Rael nodded, appreciating the formality and respect in the warrior's tone. Thank you, we are honored to be here. The Orc warriors led them through the stronghold's gates, where they were met with the sights and sounds of a bustling community. Orcs of all ages went about their daily tasks, their movements purposeful and coordinated. The air was filled with the sound of hammers on anvils, the laughter of children, and the rhythmic chants of warriors in training. Grushak awaited them in the central hall, a grand structure adorned with banners and trophies from past battles. The chieftain stood tall and imposing, his presence commanding attention. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of curiosity and anticipation as Rael and his delegation entered. Rael, my friend, Grushak greeted, his voice booming and warm. It is good to see you. Welcome to our home. Rael smiled, stepping forward to clasp Grushak's forearm in a gesture of camaraderie. Thank you, Grushak. It is an honor to be here. We have much to discuss. Grushak nodded, gesturing for them to sit. The central hall was filled with long tables, where Orcs of various ranks and roles gathered to listen and participate in the discussions. It was clear that Grushak valued transparency and the involvement of his people in important decisions. As they sat, Rael began to outline his vision for a deeper alliance. Grushak, our victories together have proven the strength of our bond. But I believe we can achieve even more by integrating our people more fully. I propose a formal alliance that not only solidifies our military cooperation but also includes shared governance and cultural exchange. Grushak listened intently, his expression thoughtful. You speak of a true union, Rael. What you propose is ambitious, but I see the wisdom in it. Our strength lies in our unity, and by combining our strengths, we can create something truly formidable. Lysandra chimed in, we envision a council where Orc leaders have a significant voice, ensuring that your people's needs and perspectives are represented. We also propose joint training programs, where our warriors can learn from each other and build a stronger, more cohesive force. Serafina added, and beyond military matters, we believe in cultural integration. Our mages can work with your shamans to create powerful magical defenses. We can also establish exchange programs where our people can learn about each other's traditions and ways of life. The hall was silent for a moment as the Orcs considered the proposals. Then, one of the elder Orcs spoke up, his voice steady and wise. Chieftain Grushak, we have fought alongside Rael and his people. We have seen their strength and honor. I believe this alliance can bring great benefits to our people. Grushak nodded, his decision clear. Very well, Rael. We will formalize this alliance. Let us work together to create a future where our peoples stand united, stronger than ever before. The next few days were filled with intense discussions and planning. Representatives from both sides worked together to draft the terms of the alliance, ensuring that it was fair and mutually beneficial. There were challenges and compromises, but the spirit of cooperation and mutual respect prevailed. One evening, as the discussions continued, Rael and Grushak took a moment to reflect on their journey together. They stood on a balcony overlooking the stronghold, the stars shining brightly above. Grushak, Rael said, his voice filled with gratitude, we have come a long way since our first meeting. I am honored to have you as an ally and a friend. Grushak grinned, his tusks gleaming in the moonlight. And I, you, Rael. Together, we will forge a legacy that will be remembered for generations. The following day, the formal ceremony to solidify their alliance began. The central hall was filled with orcs and representatives from Rael's coalition, all gathered to witness the historic event. The atmosphere was one of excitement and anticipation, as the two leaders prepared to take the next step in their journey together. Grushak began the ceremony with a powerful speech. Today, we stand united as brothers and sisters. Our alliance is not just a pact of convenience but a bond forged in battle and strengthened by mutual respect. Together, we will create a future where our peoples thrive. Rael followed, his voice carrying the weight of their shared vision. This alliance represents our commitment to each other and to the future we seek to build. Let us move forward together, united in purpose and strength. As part of the ceremony, a symbolic weapon was forged, a massive sword crafted by the best blacksmiths from both Rael's and Grushak's people. The sword was a testament to their combined strength and commitment, its blade gleaming with the promise of a united future. With the ceremonial sword in hand, Rael and Grushak stood side by side, raising it high for all to see. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the hall. The alliance was formalized, and a new chapter in their journey had begun. The days following the ceremony were filled with celebration and cultural exchange. Feasts were held, where the diverse members of Rael's coalition shared food, stories, and traditions. Warriors from different factions participated in friendly competitions, showcasing their skills and building camaraderie. With the terms of the alliance agreed upon, preparations for the grand ceremony were underway. This event would not only formalize the alliance between Rael's coalition and the orcs but also symbolize the unity and strength of their partnership. The orc stronghold was a hive of activity as both orcs and humans worked together to make the ceremony a memorable occasion. The central hall of the orc stronghold was transformed into a grand venue for the ceremony. Banners bearing the symbols of both Rael's coalition and Grushak's orc clan hung side by side, a visual testament to their united front. The hall was adorned with torches that cast a warm, inviting glow, and long tables were set up for the grand feast that would follow the formal proceedings. On the day of the ceremony, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Representatives from all allied factions had gathered, their diverse attire and symbols reflecting the rich tapestry of cultures that now formed Rael's coalition. The sense of unity and shared purpose was palpable, and it filled Rael with a deep sense of pride and hope. Rael and Grushak stood at the forefront of the gathering, their presence commanding respect and attention. The ceremony began with traditional orc rituals, paying homage to their ancestors and the spirits that guided them. Grushak, dressed in ceremonial armor adorned with symbols of his clan, led the rituals with solemn reverence. The orc chieftain addressed the gathered crowd, his voice resonant and powerful. Today, we stand united as brothers and sisters. This alliance is not just a pact of convenience but a bond forged in battle and strengthened by mutual respect. Together, we will create a future where our peoples thrive. Rael stepped forward to speak next, his words carrying the weight of their shared vision. This alliance represents our commitment to each other and to the future we seek to build. Our strength lies in our unity, and together, we will overcome any challenge. Let us move forward together, united in purpose and strength. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the hall. The formal speeches were followed by the highlight of the ceremony, the forging of the ceremonial weapon. This massive sword, crafted by the best blacksmiths from both Rael's and Grushak's people, symbolized their unbreakable alliance and their commitment to defending their unified realm together. The blacksmiths brought forth the components of the sword, their faces set with determination and pride. Eldrick, the master blacksmith from Rael's side, and Thrag, the orc blacksmith, worked together at the forge. The air was filled with the rhythmic sound of hammers striking metal, the glow of the forge casting a magical light on their efforts. As the sword took shape, the crowd watched in awe, witnessing the collaboration between the two blacksmiths. The blade was inscribed with runes that symbolized unity, strength, and protection. The hilt was crafted with intricate designs that represented the combined heritage of the coalition. When the sword was finally completed, it was a masterpiece of craftsmanship and a powerful symbol of their alliance. Rael and Grushak took the ceremonial sword in their hands, raising it high above their heads. The crowd cheered, their voices a powerful affirmation of their shared commitment. The sword was then placed in a prominent position in the hall, a constant reminder of their unity and the strength of their alliance. With the formalities concluded, the grand feast began. Long tables laden with food and drink stretched across the hall, offering a diverse array of dishes that reflected the rich culinary traditions of the coalition. Orc warriors and human soldiers, mages and craftsmen, all mingled together, sharing stories and laughter. The barriers that had once separated them were dissolving, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect. As the feast continued, Rael moved through the crowd, engaging in conversations and deepening the bonds of friendship with the various representatives. He spoke with Eric from the Free Cities, discussing the progress of their trade agreements. He shared a toast with Mira, the dwarf engineer, celebrating the successful integration of their engineering teams. Everywhere he went, he saw the fruits of their collective efforts and the promise of a brighter future. Serafina, ever the mediator and healer, moved gracefully through the crowd as well. She shared insights with orc shamans, discussing ways to combine their magical knowledge for the betterment of all. The exchange of ideas and traditions was enriching for both sides, fostering a deeper understanding and respect. Grushak, surrounded by his warriors, spoke with pride about the alliance. "We have found true allies in Rael and his people. Together, we are stronger than ever. This is a new era for our clans, one where we stand united and invincible." As the night wore on, the celebrations continued with music and dance. Orc drummers set a powerful rhythm, while human musicians played melodies that stirred the heart. The dance floor was a vibrant mix of cultures, with orcs and humans joining together in joyous celebration. It was a night of unity and joy, a testament to the bonds they had forged. In a quieter moment, Rael and Grushak stepped outside to gaze at the night sky. The stars above seemed to shine more brightly, a symbol of the hope and promise that their alliance represented. "Grushak," Rael said, his voice filled with gratitude, "we have achieved something truly remarkable. Our alliance is a beacon of hope and strength for our people. I am honored to stand by your side." Grushak grinned, his tusks gleaming in the moonlight. "And you, Rael. We have forged a bond that will endure through any challenge. Together, we will lead our people to greatness." Chapter 18. Siege Preparations. The alliance with the orcs had strengthened Rael's coalition, but new challenges loomed on the horizon. The fortified undead city of Necropolis stood as a dark bastion of evil, its presence a constant threat to the stability of Rael's unified realm. Rael knew that taking Necropolis would be a monumental task, requiring meticulous planning, extensive resources, and the full cooperation of his allies. Rael convened a council of his most trusted advisors in the Grand Hall of Darkhold. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation as Lysandra, Alistair, Serafina, Grushak, and Mira gathered around the large war table, which was covered with maps and intelligence reports. The room was filled with the quiet murmur of strategists discussing the upcoming siege. "Necropolis is a formidable enemy stronghold," Rael began, his voice steady and authoritative. "It is protected by dark magic and a garrison of undead warriors. Our goal is to gather the resources and intelligence necessary to mount a successful siege. We cannot afford any mistakes." Lysandra, the master strategist, nodded in agreement. "Our first priority is to gather detailed reconnaissance. We need to understand the city's defenses, layout, and the strengths and weaknesses of its garrison. Spies and scouts will be crucial in gathering this information." Alistair, the seasoned commander, outlined the logistical needs. "We need to secure food, medical supplies, and ammunition for a prolonged siege. Our allies must be mobilized to provide support and reinforcements. We cannot sustain a siege without a steady flow of supplies." Mira, the dwarf engineer, proposed engineering solutions to breach the city's formidable defenses. "We can build siege engines and fortifications that will allow us to assault the walls and protect our troops. Dwarven craftsmanship will play a crucial role in this effort. We need to construct trebuchets, battering rams, and siege towers." Serafina, the head mage, added, "We must also focus on countering the undead city's magical defenses. Our mages will need to disrupt their dark wards and neutralize their necromancers. This will require a coordinated effort from our strongest spellcasters." With a clear plan in place, Rael dispatched scouts and spies to gather intelligence on Necropolis. These skilled operatives, adept at moving unseen, infiltrated the surrounding areas of the city, observing guard routines, mapping the defenses, and noting the locations of dark magical wards. They also sought information on the leaders of the undead forces, hoping to identify key targets that could be neutralized to weaken the city's defenses. Simultaneously, Rael mobilized his coalition to gather the necessary resources. He sent envoys to the Free Cities, the Dwarven clans, the coastal settlements, and the Orc strongholds, requesting their support in the upcoming siege. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with each faction pledging their resources and manpower to the effort. In the Free Cities, merchants and traders worked tirelessly to gather food, medical supplies, and ammunition. Caravans loaded with provisions began to make their way towards Darkhold, escorted by well-armed guards. The bustling markets and workshops were filled with the sound of hammers and the chatter of busy craftsmen, all working towards a common goal. The Dwarven clans, known for their unparalleled craftsmanship, focused on constructing the siege engines and fortifications. Mira and her team of engineers oversaw the production of massive trebuchets, reinforced battering rams, and towering siege engines. The forges blazed day and night, the air filled with the rhythmic clang of hammers on anvils and the hiss of steam as metal was shaped and tempered. In the coastal settlements, shipwrights and sailors prepared for the possibility of a naval blockade to cut off Necropolis from any sea-based supply routes. Warships were outfitted with ballistae and catapults, ready to provide support from the water. The docks were alive with activity, as sailors loaded supplies and prepared their vessels for the journey to Darkhold. The orc strongholds contributed their formidable warriors and unique resources. Grushak personally oversaw the training of his warriors, ensuring they were ready for the brutal combat that awaited them. The orcs also provided war beasts, massive, armored creatures that could break through enemy lines and create chaos among the undead ranks. As the days passed, reports from the scouts and spies began to trickle in. They provided detailed maps of Necropolis, highlighting key defensive positions, entry points, and the locations of dark magical wards. The information was invaluable, allowing Rael and his advisors to begin formulating a comprehensive strategy for the siege. In the war room, Rael and his advisors pored over the maps and intelligence reports. The scouts had identified several weaknesses in the city's defenses, including a section of the wall that was less fortified and a hidden tunnel that could provide a potential entry point for a small strike team. Lysandra pointed to the map, her eyes sharp with focus. We can use this information to our advantage. A coordinated assault on their weaker defenses, combined with a surprise attack through the tunnel, could create a breach in their walls. This would allow our forces to pour into the city and engage the enemy directly. Serafina added, our mages can work to disrupt their dark wards and create openings for our ground forces. We will need to target their necromancers first, as they are the key to the undead's strength. Neutralizing them will weaken the entire garrison. Grushak nodded, his expression resolute. My warriors are ready. We will lead the assault and break through their defenses. Once inside, we will cut down their leaders and sow chaos among their ranks. Rael listened to his advisors, his mind racing with the possibilities. He knew that the success of the siege would depend on careful coordination and the full commitment of his allies. With the resources and intelligence they had gathered, he was confident that they could mount a successful assault on Necropolis. To ensure that all factions were fully prepared and committed, Rael decided to hold a grand war council at Darkhold. He invited leaders from all allied factions to participate in the strategic planning, emphasizing the importance of their unity and cooperation in the upcoming siege. The Grand Hall of Darkhold was filled with representatives from the free cities, the dwarven clans, the coastal settlements, and the orc strongholds. The atmosphere was one of determination and resolve, as each leader understood the significance of the mission before them. Rael stood at the head of the assembly, his voice carrying the weight of their shared purpose. We stand on the brink of a decisive battle. Necropolis is a threat to the stability and peace of our realm. Together, we have gathered the resources and intelligence needed to mount a successful siege. Now, we must unite our strengths and execute our plan with precision. Lysandra stepped forward, outlining the details of their strategy. We will begin with a sustained bombardment using our siege engines, targeting their defensive structures and magical wards. Our mages will work to disrupt their dark magic, creating openings for our ground forces. Grushak's warriors, supported by our combined forces, will lead the assault on the city walls. Alistair added, we have secured supply lines and established outposts to ensure a steady flow of reinforcements and resources. Our logistics teams are prepared to support the siege for as long as necessary. Every faction has a vital role to play in this effort. The plan was met with unanimous support, and the leaders pledged their full commitment to the siege effort. The atmosphere in the hall was one of unity and determination, with each faction understanding the importance of their contribution to the success of the mission. The air in Darkhold buzzed with anticipation as preparations for the siege of Necropolis reached their peak. Rael's coalition, a diverse assembly of warriors, mages, engineers, and strategists from all allied factions, worked tirelessly to ensure every detail was meticulously planned. The intelligence gathered by scouts and spies had given them a clear picture of the fortified undead city, and now it was time to translate that information into a cohesive strategy. The Grand War Council convened in Darkhold's main hall was a sight to behold. Leaders from the free cities, the dwarven clans, the coastal settlements, and the orc strongholds gathered around the enormous war table, their faces set with determination. The hall was filled with the sound of animated discussions, the clinking of armor, and the rustling of maps. Rael stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding respect. Beside him were his trusted advisors, Lysandra, Alistair, Serafina, Grushak, and Mira, each ready to contribute their expertise to the plan. Thank you all for coming, Rael began, his voice resonating through the hall. We face a formidable enemy in Necropolis, but I have no doubt that, united, we can overcome any challenge. Our goal is to dismantle their defenses, neutralize their dark magic, and take the city. This will be a decisive battle for the future of our realm. Lysandra stepped forward, spreading out detailed maps and intelligence reports. Our scouts have provided us with critical information about Necropolis. The city is heavily fortified, with multiple layers of defenses and powerful magical wards. However, we have identified several weaknesses we can exploit. She pointed to a section of the wall that was less fortified. This area is a potential entry point for a breach. Additionally, there is a hidden tunnel here. She indicated another spot on the map, which could allow a small strike team to infiltrate the city and cause disruption from within. Alistair took over, outlining the logistics of the siege. Our supply lines are secure, with food, medical supplies, and ammunition already stockpiled. We have established outposts along the route to Necropolis to ensure a steady flow of reinforcements. Our siege engines, crafted by Mira and her team, are ready for deployment. Mira, the dwarf engineer, spoke with pride about the siege engines. We have constructed trebuchets, battering rams, and siege towers, all reinforced with the best dwarven craftsmanship. These will be crucial in breaking through their defenses. Serafina added, our mages are prepared to counter the undead city's dark magic. We will target their necromancers first, as they are the linchpins of the undead forces. Disrupting their spells will weaken their entire garrison. Grushak, the orc chieftain, stood tall and resolute. My warriors are ready for the assault. We will lead the charge and break through their lines. The undead may be relentless, but so are we. Rael listened to each of his advisors, their words reinforcing his own confidence in their plan. He turned to the gathered leaders, his gaze steady and resolute. Each of your factions plays a vital role in this siege. We must work together, coordinating our efforts to ensure success. Let us begin by outlining our specific roles and responsibilities. The Free Cities, represented by Eric, pledged their archers and support units to the siege. Our archers will provide covering fire, targeting key enemy positions and protecting our ground forces. We will also supply additional medical teams to tend to the wounded. The Dwarven clans, led by Mira, committed their engineers and heavy infantry. Our engineers will operate the siege engines and fortifications. Our heavy infantry will support the orcs in the front lines, providing a solid defense against any counterattacks. The coastal settlements, represented by a seasoned sea captain named Alara, offered their naval support. Our ships will blockade the city's harbor, cutting off any sea-based supply routes. We will also launch coastal raids to create further disruption. Grushak and his orc warriors would lead the main assault on the city walls, using their brute strength and combat prowess to break through the undead defenses. We will hit them hard and fast, creating openings for our allies to pour into the city. As the leaders outlined their roles, a sense of unity and determination filled the hall. The plan was comprehensive, leveraging the strengths of each faction to ensure a coordinated and effective assault on Necropolis. Rael raised his hand for silence, his voice carrying the weight of their shared purpose. This siege will test us like never before, but I have faith in each and every one of you. Together, we will bring down Necropolis and secure a future of peace and prosperity for our realm. The council adjourned with a renewed sense of purpose. The leaders returned to their respective factions to relay the plans and prepare their forces for the monumental task ahead. Rael and his advisors continued to refine their strategy, ensuring that every detail was accounted for. In the days that followed, Darkhold became a bustling center of activity. Warriors trained rigorously, engineers fine-tuned the siege engines, and mages prepared their spells. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and resolve. Rael took the time to visit each faction, offering words of encouragement and ensuring that everyone was prepared for the siege. In the training grounds, he watched as orc warriors practiced their combat techniques alongside human soldiers and dwarven infantry. The sight filled him with pride, knowing that their unity was their greatest strength. In the mage's tower, Serafina and her team worked tirelessly to devise counterspells and magical defenses. Rael joined them, discussing the importance of targeting the necromancers and disrupting their dark magic. Their power comes from their necromancers. If we can neutralize them, the undead forces will crumble. Mira and her engineers worked around the clock to perfect the siege engines. Rael visited the forges, where the air was thick with the heat of molten metal and the sound of hammers striking anvils. These machines will be the key to breaching their walls, Mira said, her eyes gleaming with determination. We won't let you down, Rael. As the final preparations were made, Rael called one last meeting with his core advisors. They gathered in the war room, the maps of Necropolis spread out before them. Rael looked at each of them, his heart swelling with gratitude and pride. We've done everything we can to prepare. Now, we must execute our plan with precision and resolve. The future of our realm depends on this siege. Lysandra nodded, her eyes sharp with focus. We'll see this through, Rael. We've come too far to fail now. Alistair placed a reassuring hand on Rael's shoulder. We'll stand by you every step of the way. Our unity is our greatest weapon. Serafina added, and our strength will guide us to victory. Together, we are unstoppable. Grushak grinned, his tusks gleaming. Let's show those undead what real warriors look like. The time had come. With the strategy in place and their forces ready, Rael's coalition began their march towards Necropolis. The journey was long and arduous, but their spirits were high. They knew that this was more than just a battle, it was a fight for the future of their unified realm. Chapter 19. The Siege of Necropolis. The dawn of the Siege of Necropolis broke with a heavy silence, the kind that precedes monumental events. Rael's coalition, a formidable assembly of humans, orcs, dwarves, and other allied forces, stood poised on the outskirts of the undead city. The sight of the dark, foreboding walls of Necropolis filled the horizon, casting long shadows over the assembled troops. Rael rode along the front lines, his presence a beacon of resolve and leadership. He could see the determination in the eyes of his soldiers, the fierce readiness in Grushak's orcs, the stoic focus of Myra's dwarves, and the mystical concentration of Serafina's mages. They were ready. This was the culmination of their preparations and sacrifices. Today, we face one of our greatest challenges, Rael called out, his voice amplified by a spell cast by Serafina. Necropolis is a bastion of darkness, but it is not invincible. Together, we have the strength, the unity, and the resolve to bring it down. Fight with honor, fight with courage, and fight for our future. The army responded with a unified roar, a powerful declaration of their collective spirit. With a final nod to his commanders, Rael gave the signal to begin the assault. The initial bombardment started at dawn, with the sky still tinged with the soft colors of the rising sun. Trebuchets, engineered by Myra's dwarves, hurled massive stones at the city's walls, each impact sending shockwaves through the ground. The walls of Necropolis, though formidable, began to show signs of strain under the relentless assault. Serafina's mages joined in, casting powerful spells to disrupt the dark wards protecting the city. Bolts of lightning and fire arced through the air, clashing with the eerie, necromantic energy emanating from the city. The sky above became a battlefield of its own, with magical energies colliding in brilliant displays of light and power. From within Necropolis, the undead defenders responded with their own barrage. Arrows, bolts, and dark magic rained down on Rael's forces. The air was filled with the sounds of battle, the clash of metal, the cries of the wounded, and the shouts of commanders rallying their troops. Grushak's orc warriors led the charge, their raw strength and fierce combat skills at the forefront. They smashed through the initial defenses, creating openings for the other allied forces to exploit. The ground shook with the force of their assault, each orc warrior fighting with a ferocity that inspired those around them. Amidst the chaos, a team of elite scouts, led by Alistair, navigated the hidden tunnel they had discovered earlier. This infiltration force was tasked with causing disruption from within, targeting key defensive positions and creating confusion among the undead ranks. Moving with practiced stealth, they slid through the shadows, their presence unnoticed by the enemy. Inside the city, Alistair and his team encountered fierce resistance, but their training and coordination allowed them to overcome each obstacle. They planted explosive charges at critical points, setting off a series of explosions that rocked Necropolis from the inside. The sudden chaos created an opportunity for Rael's forces to press their advantage. The coalition's infantry, a mix of human soldiers and dwarven heavy infantry, advanced methodically, protected by the covering fire of archers from the free cities. The archers, positioned on high ground, picked off undead defenders with deadly precision, their arrows finding gaps in armor and striking down necromancers attempting to cast their dark spells. Rael rode at the head of his troops, his sword gleaming in the morning light. He fought alongside his men, each swing of his blade cutting down undead foes. His presence on the battlefield was a rallying point, his bravery and leadership inspiring his troops to fight with renewed vigor. Serafina and her mages focused their efforts on the necromancers, whose dark magic was the cornerstone of the undead defenses. With each necromancer they neutralized, the strength of the undead forces waned. The mages worked in coordinated teams, combining their spells to create powerful disruptions in the enemy's magical defenses. Despite the fierce resistance, Rael's coalition began to make significant headway. The outer defenses of Necropolis were breached, and the allied forces poured into the city. The streets became battlegrounds, each inch contested with ferocious determination. Grushak led his warriors through the breach, their battle cries echoing through the narrow streets. They encountered hordes of undead, but the orcs fought with relentless fury, cutting down their enemies with brutal efficiency. Their advance created a path for the other forces to follow, driving deeper into the heart of the city. Amidst the chaos, Rael directed his forces with strategic precision. He identified key positions to secure and directed reinforcements to where they were needed most. His mind was a flurry of tactical decisions, each one aimed at maximizing their advantage and minimizing their losses. The tide of battle began to turn as Rael's coalition pressed their advantage. The coordinated assault, combined with the disruptions caused by Alistair's infiltration team, weakened the undead defenses. The necromancers, overwhelmed by the relentless attacks from Serafina's mages, began to falter. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Rael's forces reached the inner sanctum of Necropolis. This final bastion of the undead city was heavily guarded, but the coalition was undeterred. With a concerted effort, they breached the last line of defenses, breaking into the heart of the city. The battle reached a fever pitch as Rael and his commanders led the final assault. The streets were filled with the clamor of combat, the air thick with the smell of smoke and the cries of battle. The undead fought with mindless ferocity, but the coalition's unity and resolve proved stronger. In the midst of the battle, Rael faced off against one of the lead necromancers, a figure shrouded in dark robes and emanating an aura of malevolent power. The necromancer's eyes glowed with an unnatural light as he summoned waves of dark magic to strike at Rael. Rael met the attacks head-on, his sword slicing through the dark energy with precision. The two clashed in a fierce duel, the necromancer's spells clashing with Rael's swordsmanship. Each strike and parry was a test of skill and resolve, the outcome of the battle hanging in the balance. With a final, decisive blow, Rael struck down the necromancer, his sword piercing through the dark robes and extinguishing the malevolent light in the necromancer's eyes. The fall of the necromancer sent a shockwave through the undead forces, their coordination and strength crumbling. With their leaders defeated and their defenses shattered, the remaining undead forces began to fall back. Rael's coalition pressed their advantage, driving the undead from the city and securing key positions. The battle that had begun at dawn continued into the afternoon, but by the time the sun began to set, the outcome was clear. The walls of Necropolis, once a symbol of darkness and despair, now bore the banners of Rael's coalition. The city, though scarred by the battle, was finally under their control. The siege had been long and brutal, but the unity and determination of Rael's forces had carried them to victory. As the dust settled and the last remnants of the undead were dealt with, Rael stood amidst the ruins of Necropolis, his heart filled with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. They had faced one of their greatest challenges and emerged victorious, their unity and strength overcoming the darkness. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a blood-red glow over the battlefield that was once the dark heart of Necropolis. The sounds of battle had quieted, replaced by the groans of the wounded and the cheers of the victorious. Rael's coalition had accomplished what many thought impossible. They had taken Necropolis, the stronghold of the undead. Rael stood on a raised platform in the city center, overlooking the chaos of post-battle cleanup. His armor was battered, his sword stained with the remnants of the dark magic he had fought so fiercely against. He scanned the scene below, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. They had won, but the cost had been high. "Begin securing the city," Rael ordered, his voice echoing through the eerie silence. "Search every building, every alley. Ensure there are no pockets of resistance left." Alistair and his troops moved swiftly, their efficiency a testament to their rigorous training. They fanned out, systematically clearing the city of any lingering threats. The undead, without their necromantic leaders to guide them, were quickly neutralized. Alistair's team, having been instrumental in the infiltration and chaos within the city, now led the efforts to stabilize it. Mira and her engineers began assessing the damage to the city's infrastructure. The dwarven engineer was a whirlwind of activity, her keen eyes taking in every detail. "We need to reinforce these walls," she muttered, already sketching out plans for repairs and improvements. "And those towers, dangerous. They need to be restructured." Grushak, covered in the grime and gore of battle, rallied his warriors. "We've done well, brothers and sisters," he roared, his voice carrying across the square. "But our work is not done. Help the wounded, secure the city. Show them that Orc's strength is not just in battle, but in rebuilding and protecting." Serafina and her mages were already at work, casting healing spells and tending to the injured. The magical energies that had once been used to destroy now mended broken bones and soothed burned flesh. She directed her mages with a calm authority, ensuring that the most critically injured were cared for first. As night fell, the city of Necropolis was a hive of activity. Fires burned in makeshift forges as Myra's engineers began their repairs. The wounded were gathered in triage centers, where healers worked tirelessly. Soldiers patrolled the streets, ensuring that no threat remained hidden in the shadows. Rael finally allowed himself a moment of rest, sitting on the edge of a broken fountain in the city center. He looked around at the remnants of the battle, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. Victory was theirs, but the cost was evident in the faces of his weary soldiers and the ruins of the once great city. Lysandra approached, her expression a mix of pride and concern. "Rael, we did it. Necropolis is ours, but the city is in ruins, and our people are exhausted. We need to plan our next steps carefully." Rael nodded, appreciating her counsel. "We will rebuild, Lysandra. This city will become a symbol of our strength and unity. But first, we need to ensure it is secure and that our people are taken care of." Together, they walked through the streets, assessing the damage and speaking with their soldiers. The coalition's unity was evident in the way the different factions worked together, each bringing their unique skills to the task of rebuilding and securing Necropolis. At the makeshift triage center, Rael found Serafina kneeling beside a wounded soldier, her hands glowing with healing energy. She looked up as he approached, her eyes tired but resolute. "We've saved many lives today, Rael. But there are still more who need our help." Rael placed a hand on her shoulder, his gratitude clear. "You and your mages have done incredible work, Serafina. We couldn't have won this battle without you." Serafina smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "We've all played our part. Now, we must ensure that our victory is not in vain." As dawn approached, the city began to take on a new life. The remnants of the undead were cleared away, and the coalition's banners flew proudly over the city walls. Rael called a meeting of his key advisors and the leaders of the allied factions to discuss their next steps. In the grand hall of what had once been the necromancer's stronghold, Rael stood before the assembled leaders. The hall was still shadowed with the remnants of dark magic, but the presence of the coalition brought a sense of hope and determination. "We have achieved a great victory," Rael began, his voice echoing through the hall. "Necropolis, the stronghold of darkness, is now under our control. This victory was possible because of our unity and strength. But our work is not done. We must rebuild this city, secure our realm, and ensure that such darkness never threatens us again." Mira outlined her plans for rebuilding the city's defenses. "We'll start with the walls and towers. They need to be reinforced to prevent any future attacks. We'll also set up workshops and forges to support our efforts." Alistair discussed the need for ongoing security. "We'll establish a permanent garrison here, with regular patrols and watchtowers. We need to ensure that no remnants of the undead can regroup and pose a threat." Serafina proposed ways to cleanse the city of lingering dark magic. "We'll need to perform purification rituals throughout the city to ensure that no traces of necromantic energy remain. This will make the city safe for habitation and prevent any resurgence of dark magic." Grushak emphasized the importance of unity and morale. "Our warriors will help with the rebuilding efforts. This will show our commitment to our allies and strengthen the bonds between us. We must also honor our fallen and ensure their sacrifices are remembered." Rael listened to each of his advisors, their plans forming a comprehensive strategy for securing and rebuilding Necropolis. The leaders of the allied factions pledged their support, understanding the significance of this moment for the future of their realm. The days that followed were a testament to the coalition's strength and resilience. Soldiers and engineers worked tirelessly to rebuild the city's defenses, while healers tended to the wounded. The city, once a symbol of darkness, began to transform into a beacon of hope and unity. Rael moved among his people, offering words of encouragement and gratitude. He spoke with the soldiers who had fought bravely, the engineers who worked around the clock, and the mages who continued their efforts to cleanse the city of dark magic. His presence was a constant reminder of their shared purpose and the vision they were working towards. One evening, as the sun set over the newly raised walls of Necropolis, Rael stood on the battlements, looking out over the city. The banners of the coalition fluttered in the breeze, a symbol of their unity and strength. He was joined by Lysandra, who stood silently beside him. "We've come a long way, Rael," she said softly. "But there is still much to do." Rael nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Yes, there is. But today, we have proven that we can overcome any challenge, no matter how great. Together, we will continue to build a future of peace and prosperity for our realm." As night fell, the city of Necropolis, once shrouded in darkness, began to glow with the light of countless torches and lanterns. The coalition's efforts had transformed it into a symbol of hope and unity, a testament to their strength and resolve. Chapter 20. Integrating the Undead. The siege of Necropolis had ended in victory, but as the dust settled and the city began its transformation from a dark stronghold to a beacon of hope, Rael faced a new challenge. The remnants of the undead forces, now leaderless and scattered, presented an opportunity that Rael was keen to explore. Integrating the undead into his coalition could provide unique strategic advantages, but it required careful handling to ensure trust and cooperation among all factions. Rael knew that this was not a decision he could make lightly or unilaterally. He convened a council of his most trusted advisors and experts in the Grand Hall of Necropolis, which was now repurposed for the governance of the newly acquired city. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism, tempered by the gravity of the task ahead. "Integrating the undead into our forces could be a significant boon," Rael began, addressing the assembled leaders. "Their unique abilities and resilience can provide us with strategic advantages in future conflicts. However, we must approach this with care. Trust and cooperation are essential, and we must ensure that all factions within our coalition are on board." Serafina, head of the mages, nodded thoughtfully. "The necromantic magic that animates the undead is powerful and dangerous. We need to understand it fully to control and harness it without falling prey to its darker aspects. My mages and I will begin studying the necromantic energies and seek ways to bind them to our will in a manner that aligns with our principles." Mira, the dwarf engineer, added, "There are practical applications for the abilities of the undead, particularly in labor and warfare. Their resilience and ability to function in harsh environments could be incredibly useful. We need to investigate how we can incorporate their strengths into our strategies and infrastructure." Rael looked to Grushak, whose orc warriors had fought fiercely against the undead. "Grushak, your thoughts?" Grushak's expression was stern but thoughtful. "The undead are formidable foes, but if we can turn them into allies, they could become a valuable asset. However, we must ensure that they are truly loyal and that their presence does not sow discord among our ranks." With the council's consensus, Rael initiated a multi-pronged approach to understand and integrate the undead. Scholars, mages, and engineers were tasked with studying the undead, while diplomatic efforts were made to communicate with their leaders. Serafina and her team of mages set up a research facility in one of the less damaged sections of Necropolis. The air hummed with magical energy as they delved into the mysteries of necromantic magic. They examined captured necromancers, studied ancient tomes, and conducted controlled experiments to understand the nature of the magic animating the undead. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when Serafina discovered a way to bind necromantic energy to the will of a mage, effectively allowing them to control the undead without succumbing to the corrupting influence of the dark magic. This discovery was crucial, providing a means to integrate the undead without compromising the coalition's ethical standards. Mira and her team of engineers explored the practical applications of the undead's abilities. They found that the undead, particularly the skeletal warriors, were well suited for labor-intensive tasks. Their lack of need for rest or sustenance made them ideal for continuous work, such as fortification building and heavy lifting. Meanwhile, Rael initiated dialogues with the leaders of the remaining undead forces. These discussions were delicate, requiring a balance of respect and firmness. The undead were wary, having been accustomed to a life of servitude under their necromantic masters, but they saw the potential benefits of a more stable existence within Rael's unified realm. Rael met with one such leader, a former high-ranking undead general named Dravos, in the Grand Hall of Necropolis. Dravos, a towering figure clad in dark, ancient armor, carried an aura of menace but also a sense of curiosity. "General Dravos," Rael began, his tone respectful but authoritative, "we have both been through much to reach this point. I see in you a potential ally, not an enemy. Our vision is to create a realm where all can coexist in peace and prosperity. I offer you and your kind a place in this vision." Dravos regarded Rael with hollow, glowing eyes. "You speak of peace, yet you wage war. What assurances do we have that we will not be betrayed and destroyed?" Rael met Dravos's gaze steadily. "We seek to unite, not to conquer. Our actions will speak louder than words. Join us, and you will have a place in a future where your abilities are valued and your existence respected." The initial response from Dravos and other undead leaders was cautious but hopeful. They saw an opportunity for a new kind of existence, one free from the tyranny of their necromantic masters. Slowly, they began to agree to the terms of integration. With the foundational understanding established, Rael moved to the next phase of integration, training. Specialized programs were developed to teach the undead how to fight alongside human, orc, and dwarf soldiers. These programs emphasized coordination, trust building, and the unique combat roles the undead could fulfill. Training sessions were held in the expansive training grounds outside Necropolis. Serafina's mages worked closely with the undead, teaching them to channel their abilities in ways that complemented the coalition's strategies. Human soldiers, orc warriors, and dwarf engineers all participated in joint exercises, learning to trust and rely on their new allies. One such session involved a mock battle scenario. Rael watched from a high vantage point as a mixed unit of human soldiers and undead warriors engaged in coordinated maneuvers. The undead's resilience and strength were evident, as they absorbed blows that would fell ordinary soldiers and continued to fight with relentless determination. Grushak, observing the training with a critical eye, nodded in approval. "They fight well. If we can trust them, they will be a formidable addition to our forces." Cultural exchange and mutual respect were also integral to the integration process. Rael organized joint training sessions, social gatherings, and collaborative projects to foster unity and camaraderie among the diverse factions. These efforts helped break down barriers and build trust, slowly transforming the perception of the undead from feared enemies to valued allies. One evening, Rael hosted a banquet in the Grand Hall of Necropolis, bringing together leaders and soldiers from all factions, including the undead. The hall was filled with laughter and conversation as humans, orcs, dwarves, and undead shared food and stories. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism, with old prejudices slowly giving way to new friendships. As the banquet continued, Rael stood to address the gathering. "We have come a long way, and there is still much work to be done. But tonight, we celebrate our unity and our shared vision for the future. Together, we are stronger. Together, we will build a realm where all can thrive." The room erupted in applause, a powerful affirmation of their collective commitment. The integration of the undead was not without its challenges, but the progress they had made was a testament to their determination and resilience. The integration of the undead into Rael's coalition was a monumental task that required meticulous planning, patience, and a commitment to unity. With the initial understanding of necromantic magic established and the consent of undead leaders like General Dravos, the next phase focused on training and integration, ensuring that the undead could effectively contribute to their new roles without causing discord among the allied factions. The training grounds outside Necropolis buzzed with activity as soldiers, mages, and engineers from various factions gathered for the first joint training session with the undead. The air was charged with a mix of anticipation and caution. Rael stood at the forefront, his presence commanding respect and instilling confidence in his troops. "We stand on the brink of a new era," Rael addressed the assembled forces, his voice clear and steady. "Today, we begin a journey of integration and unity. The undead among us are no longer enemies, but allies. They bring unique strengths that will make us stronger together. Trust in each other, learn from each other, and let us move forward as one." The soldiers responded with a unified cheer, though there were still hints of uncertainty in their eyes. This was a step into the unknown, and Rael knew it would take time to build trust and camaraderie. He had faith that their shared vision for the future would guide them through the challenges ahead. The training began with basic drills, focusing on coordination and communication. Human, orc, dwarf, and undead soldiers formed mixed units, learning to work together seamlessly. The undead, with their resilience and unyielding strength, were particularly effective in roles that required sustained physical effort. They quickly adapted to their new combat roles, guided by the experienced officers of Rael's coalition. One of the key exercises involved a mock battle scenario designed to test the integration of undead warriors with the rest of the forces. The training ground was divided into various sections, simulating different terrains and combat situations. Each unit was tasked with completing specific objectives, from securing strategic points to neutralizing enemy positions. Serafina's mages played a crucial role in the exercise, using their spells to support and protect the mixed units. They cast defensive wards to shield the soldiers from simulated attacks and used offensive spells to disrupt the enemy forces. The mages also monitored the necromantic energies within the undead, ensuring that they remained stable and controlled. Rael watched from a high vantage point, alongside his key advisors. Lysandra, ever the strategist, analyzed the movements and tactics of each unit, noting areas of strength and potential improvement. Alistair, with his keen eye for combat, provided feedback on the effectiveness of the mixed units and the coordination between the different factions. Grushak, observing the orc warriors in action, nodded approvingly. They fight well together. The undead's resilience complements our strength, and their discipline is impressive. We can use this to our advantage in future battles. The mock battle progressed, with the mixed units demonstrating impressive coordination and adaptability. The undead warriors, guided by the experienced officers, moved with precision and purpose. Their ability to withstand damage and continue fighting provided a significant advantage, allowing the rest of the forces to maneuver and execute their strategies more effectively. As the exercise concluded, Rael called for a debriefing session. The soldiers gathered, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. Rael addressed them, his tone both encouraging and reflective. "Today, we have seen the potential of our unity," he said. "We have demonstrated that, despite our differences, we can work together towards a common goal. There is still much to learn and improve, but I am confident that we are on the right path." The soldiers responded with cheers and applause, their spirits lifted by the successful exercise. Rael's words had resonated with them, reinforcing their commitment to the integration process. In addition to the combat training, cultural exchange and mutual respect were integral to the integration efforts. Rael organized joint training sessions, social gatherings, and collaborative projects to foster unity and camaraderie among the diverse factions. These efforts were crucial in breaking down barriers and building trust, slowly transforming the perception of the undead from feared enemies to valued allies. One evening, Rael hosted a cultural exchange event in the Grand Hall of Necropolis. The hall, once a symbol of darkness, was now filled with light and life. Representatives from each faction shared their traditions, stories, and customs, creating an atmosphere of mutual respect and understanding. The orcs demonstrated their traditional combat dances, their powerful movements captivating the audience. The dwarves showcased their craftsmanship, displaying intricate metalwork and engineering marvels. The humans shared songs and tales of heroism, while the undead, guided by General Dravos, presented their own history and experiences. Rael observed the interactions, noting the genuine interest and curiosity among the factions. The cultural exchange was a crucial step in building a cohesive and united coalition. It allowed the members to see beyond their differences and recognize the shared values and goals that bound them together. As the event progressed, Rael addressed the gathering. "Tonight, we celebrate our unity and the strength that comes from our diversity. We have all faced challenges and hardships, but it is our resilience and determination that define us. Together, we will build a future where all can thrive." The room erupted in applause, the sound echoing through the hall as a testament to their collective commitment. The cultural exchange had been a success, further solidifying the bonds between the factions and fostering a sense of unity and purpose. In the days that followed, the integration of the undead continued to progress. The training programs were refined, incorporating feedback from the soldiers and commanders. The mixed units became more cohesive, their coordination and trust improving with each exercise. The undead began to prove their worth in practical applications as well. Their resilience and ability to function in harsh environments made them ideal for labor-intensive tasks. They assisted in fortification building, heavy lifting, and other demanding roles, freeing up human, orc, and dwarf soldiers for other duties. Rael's coalition grew stronger and more versatile with the successful integration of the undead. Their unique abilities provided new strategic advantages, enhancing the coalition's combat effectiveness and overall resilience. The integration process was not without its challenges, but the progress they had made was a testament to their determination and commitment to unity. The undead, once feared enemies, had become valued allies, their strengths and abilities enhancing the coalition's capabilities.